Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good. Welcome, everyone, to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have a great show tonight. We have Tony Rodrigues joining us for hours 1 and 2, getting into secret space stuff. And we also have, you know, the guy, the man with the plan, Drew Benke, joining us in hour 3 with the After Hours wrap up, plus Steve Stockton, UFO weird stories, and oh, so much more. It's going to be an awesome show tonight. Cannot wait to get into the show. Let me go ahead and take a look and see who's come in first tonight. Looks like courtesy of Race Fan. We got Race Fan with the gold. We got Kitty Catty Whack with the silver. And we got Roger Murray with the bronze. So go ahead and give a shout out to them. Race Fan, Kitty Catty Whack, and Roger Murray dropping some gems on us as well. October 5th, 1957. First satellite in space, Sputnik 1, started the space race. Yeah, and we can get into that, right? Because we're a secret space program tonight, and I have some crazy theories about some things. So we'll kind of get into all that tonight. Roger Murray, appreciate you for keeping us educated here and going down the list. Who else do we have? Mel WD-40 getting us in, getting us all lubed up and ready for the show with the can of WD-40 right there. There he is. Good evening to all. Appreciate you coming on in. Let's see. We have carrying in the Woo Train, definitely here. Good evening, Mr. Robin SOR. Looking forward to this show. Me as well, carrying in the Woo Train. Thanks for coming in. Eternity Eternal. Thanks for showing up tonight, saying hi, Rob G. Thanks for coming in. We just appreciate you. We appreciate the love and the support as always. Let's see. Who else do we have here? And yep, get that out the camera. Okay. Let's see. We have Miss Catherine Jones coming in saying hello, everyone. Hey, Miss Catherine Jones, thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks for joining us right here at the After Hours radio show. Let's see. Who else do we have? Cosmic Joe Chronicles is here. Cosmic Joe Chronicles. Hey, how you doing? And Joanne is here saying she loves this song. That's what I'm talking about. Gets you going, right? Gets the show going. Appreciate you showing up tonight. We got Daniela coming in. Thanks, Daniela, for showing up. We got Lawana Murphy in the building with the wavy hand emoji. Appreciate you showing on up tonight. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on in. Operation Shutdown. Can't wait to see Tony on with Rob G. Here we go. It's about to happen right now. Van Gogh, Dr. Love is in the building. Hey, Miss Captain Jones, appreciate you showing up. Elaine Lawson saying hi, Tony. Hi, all. How you doing? Thanks for coming on in. Algaray got the radio on in the gym. That's what I'm talking about. I need to be going to the gym right after this. Unfortunately, I've committed to a live show, so I guess we'll be doing that next. And then the gym. Here we go. So who else do we have? We got Magneticus Tractus in the building. W. Decker in the building. Hey, W. Decker, thanks for coming in. We're going to get the podcast started right now. Welcome on the podcast side. This is Mr. Rob G. It's the After Hours Radio Show. We have Tony Rodrigues joining us tonight as we get ready to jump on the radio. Here we go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we'll be broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Remember, you can access our archives for absolutely free, totally free, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, it's spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire, get some official Spaced Out swag, plus rock out to that man right there, Bumblefoot, know so much more. Just like I said earlier, we're going to be having an awesome show tonight, as always, right here on the Saturday After Hours Radio Show. We have Tony Rodrigues joining us tonight as well for hours 1 and 2. Then we have Steve Stockton joining us on hour 3, along with Drew Banke with the After Hours wrap up, and then maybe some UFO and weird news. But jumping right on into the show tonight, we don't want to hold anybody up here. So let's go ahead and get our guest on in here. Tony Rodrigues is a secret space and classified programs experiencer and the author of 3 best-selling books, sharing his personal account in addition to teaching remote viewing, remote influencing phenomena, and long-term memory therapy. Tony actively speaks and hosts conferences focused on truth exploration, which is, I love that, helping others delve into deeper understandings of hidden realities. Sounds like an awesome conversation is going to happen tonight. You know, I'm up for it. Let's go ahead and get ready to bring our guest in for the night. Tony, how you doing, Tony?
Hey, Mr. Rob G. I'm doing really good, man. I love your intro. I love that music is rad.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, just you bring in the energy, and holy smokes, what a long night. You're making 2 hours with me and then some. So yeah, that's a good chunk of work.
It seems to fly by, though. That's the beautiful thing about it, especially when you're having a great conversation, which I definitely intend on having with you tonight. First time meeting you. Once again, connection. Shout out to Drew Banke. That's my guy right there, man. He always connects the connection when it needs to be connected. So Drew Banke, shout out to you, guy. And the stars aligned for us to be able to talk tonight. So let's go ahead and kind of jump right into it. Just the way we start off, first interview, anytime we do this, is finding out who you are, how you got started, what brought you into the phenomenon. Did you have any experiences young? Kind of what directed your path to where you're at today?
Okay, I'll try to be quick about it. And for people that don't know, there have been a bunch of people that have come forward saying that they remember being what's called a 20 and back, right? So people being abducted by aliens, working for government alien programs in space for 20 years, and then being put back to the moment they were taken, only a few minutes later. So taken on a Wednesday night, lived for 20 years, and put back by Thursday morning. Mm-hmm. So fresh hell is this. So it's hard to understand for people that never heard of it before, but you know what? Very soon we're going to get a disclosure that demonstrates it. And I would never go public. I would never speak publicly about it or have gone as far as I have if I didn't have proof to back it up. So things that substantiated that cannot be explained away. So that's what happened to me. I was 10 years old. I was taken. I went to school. I was in a school in Michigan, Southern Michigan, and was in the talented and gifted program. And one of the kids that met in there on Wednesdays he said, "My dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do?" And we didn't get along. I bullied him. And later on in April of that year, his dad was the judge of the science fair, and he pointed me out. I walked by them sitting on my exhibit, and he said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about." That was a Wednesday morning, I believe April 14th, 1982, if I get my days wrong, right in there. And that Thursday, the day after, I woke up with a gray ET in my room, and I was abducted and lived for 20 years, some of them on Earth and some of them in space in the secret space program, which is a very advanced and developed society in our solar system of colonies throughout our solar system that work like corporations. Then I was put back. I woke up Thursday, April 16th, I believe, or Friday, April 16th, and went back to school. I was a different person. I was a completely different person. I had no memory of what had happened. Bleed through memories happened. I always remembered the first 30 minutes of the abduction. And then throughout my life, little bleed through memories would come different. It's not like a dream, a memory, how you got there, and a dream you don't. And so that happened all through my life, but I didn't understand why. I was like, when this is a memory, but when could that have happened? Because I also had my regular life that I lived straight through. When I was like 43, I think, 42, 43, in April of 2015, I got an MRI scan of my head. I was having headaches. My doctor said, "Let's check it out." So I got an MRI. And then 10 days later in May, about 10 days later, I know from emails. So I immediately sent emails to people. And so that's how I know the dates. But about 10 days later, I got all the memories back, big chunks of memory. I went, "Oh, shit. Whoa." And I had chunks of memory, like it made sense. Like all the little bits and pieces that I had remembered made sense. And when I started to look up the places on the earth that I remembered, so, I might be losing you guys already, but when I started to investigate the things I remembered, they were real. They existed. I found the houses. I found the place in Inucar, the place in California. I found places in Peru, towns I'd never even heard of, that all of a sudden in one day, I knew where the fishing hole was. I knew the history, when it was built. I knew when the gas station, where the good pies to buy in town were, in places that I had never been or even heard of. There's a lot of towns that everybody's never heard of. And it's like I woke up one day, and I was I don't have some kind of mental thing. I was a father. I was living in Maui. I was married. I was married to my ex-wife 23 years. I raised 3 daughters. You know what I mean? I was just a normal guy. And this happened, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do with this. And I thought, I cannot take this to the grave, because I started proving it to myself when I found the place. Like I knew about a town in Peru like that. During those 20 years, I was in a town in Peru for like 2 years. And so I still haven't been back there since. You got my memories back, but I knew it intimately. And there's been some evidence of coughed up evidence about that place. Then I was shipped off into the secret space program and off to a place called the Mars Colony Corporation for less than a year. And then off to a place called Ceres Colony Corporation. And Ceres is a dwarf planet in between Mars and the asteroid belt. And I lived there for a better part of a decade, 12 years up there. And when the Dawn probe went to Ceres in 2016, I was working with one of the ufology's top researchers, Dr. Michael Sala. And he asked me, what are the white spots on Ceres as the probe was getting into high orbit there? And I said, that's salt. I remember there's a geyser there that goes off every 6 to 9 years. Water squirts out, and the water evaporates into space, and salt snows back down. And that's what those white spots are. They're giant piles of salt. So the Dawn probe, a couple months later, I think, after I said that, said that they did a high orbit scan, and they said it's probably sulfur and a bunch of other minerals. And Dr. Sala contacted me, and he said, do you want to retract your statement? And I said, absolutely not. If there's one thing I remember is us flying over the ship I worked on, flying over that crater and watching that geyser was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I remember us talking about it, that it was salt. And I said, absolutely not. I won't take that back. I'll take it on the chin if I'm wrong. Right. So that was 2016, late 16-ish when I said that. And then it wasn't until August 10th of 2020 that NASA, the probe, got in a lower orbit and did a proper scan on the white spots and determined it was briny salt. So that was one thing in space that I called out, that panned out. So I could done it with many things on Earth from the places I've been, and there's things that I still can't share. They're secret. But I wrote it all in my book, my first book series, Colony Cavalier. And so I've got a lot of substantiating evidence, and you know what? It's still coming. So I'm still finding the paper trail of the product of the program I was originally in Inyokern, was in between the projects called Grill Flame and Center Lane, where CIA, they were Army INSCOM in conjunction with CIA contractors and the FBI, Special Services, McDonnell Douglas, the Navy, the Air Force. They were all contracting and having the Stanford Research Institute and Army INSCOM do experiments on advanced remote viewing and remote influencing, what they call psychoenergetics programs. That was the first place I was used when they took me. So I remember that. I went back to that place, physically walked in the door where I woke up in that 20 years. So it was freaky. There were two of me, you know what I mean? Like it was a freaky thing. So I guess that's my intro.
That's awesome too, as well. So, the 20 and back is something that I'm really, really new to. So forgive my ignorance in some of the questions that I may ask you. But as far as so when we talk about 20 and back, I've heard people talk about being in a program, and then once they start to gain memory of it, then they recall certain individuals that may have been there as well. Other people who have come out to say they've been part of this program. What I would want to know is, like, for someone like myself, or just hearing about 20 and back and trying to understand what it is, what is the purpose of the program?
Well, okay, so the reality is that we made contact with extraterrestrial civilizations and we do business with them daily. That's the reality. And one of the first things they traded with us was this technology, which is essentially a conjunction of probably cloning, but for the purpose of life extension. You're adding another 20 years of prime life. So, you know what I'm saying? I was taken at 10 years old. So I lived from 10 to 30. And then I was put back to 10 years old. And then I lived those years again, albeit I was messed up in the head after it. But that's the technology. So I think that they clone you. I think it's a clone, and they take your consciousness out and put it in the clone, and you live those years first. Then they have to, and when you say time travel, you lose people, man. Everybody's like, that's science fiction, but it's true. They can travel time. So they can put you back in time, kill the body, put the consciousness back in you. You don't have those memories because that body's dead, and they send you on your way. And so they're getting free labor. I was basically slave labor, man, for that time. Like, they don't give you a paycheck. It's not like I got a paycheck out of it. So it's labor into this. That's how they're building out these colonies. Like, there's a very world-renowned ufologist, a researcher, that says, look, these ships that everybody says they're seeing from the United States, from the governments, that say, he says it's not possible, because where's the economy that drives it? These are $1 trillion ships. And my answer to that is, they're not paying anybody. It's slave labor. They're trading you the extra 20 years of your life. They're saying, look, come and work for us. You'll live another 20 years with ETs and Star Trek world. And then we're going to erase your memory and put you back. But you'll live 20 extra years. And we'll give you a job. We'll take care of you, 3 hot in the cot, all of it. How many people are going to turn that down?
Yeah.
Right? So, no, just let me live my short life. So you get what I'm saying? They're not paying for people to build these ships, and they're not paying cash for people to go up into the space, into these colonies, and be an architect or be a lawyer or a doctor or all the things that cost money. So the secret space program is a genius thing, because they're trading you. They have the technology to offer you a longer life for in service to go up there and live it's basically like a military existence. It's not like you get a vote or they celebrate your birthday. It's like you're in the military up there. The colonies now have citizens. Ceres Colony did have indigenous citizens that live there, but there were a lot of people there. A 250,000 people, about 225,000 people. There were two species of ETs that were living there full time. Many other ETs visiting it, and maybe as much as 80,000 people were 20 and back people up there. So they were going back. So sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat. I know there's some people that are like, "Come on, man," you know.
No, you're okay. And the questions,
I don't mind.
The questions that we get in the chat, yeah, and I'm going to totally appreciate you being open to any and all questions. That's the excellent thing when having a conversation. But I do want everyone to know that we will be getting to your questions. Just make sure you put them in caps. That way I can tag them and save them for the end of our conversation tonight, guys. Yeah, but that's totally awesome that you're open to all that as well. So a couple questions on this 20 and back. Is it always, are the youth always targeted? Is it always youth?
No, not always. Some people are targeted because they're not discovered until later on in life, but most of the time they pick people that are young. Most of the people that are going to, so I was an anomaly because I was like I said, that guy's dad just threw me in. I wasn't groomed for it. Most people that are taken are groomed. It may be as early as prenatally. While they're in the womb, they're getting genetically treated, and unbeknownst to the mom. And then they take them at 3 or 4, and they train them and put them back. So they can take kids for 3 days and put them right back in the moment they left at night. So they do this. Kids are 7, 8 years old. They're getting military training. And then about the age of, I find that it's about 12 years old for girls. Girls right around the age of 12 are taken because that's their prime years. 12 to 22 to 32, like that's prime service time. And boys, sometimes earlier than that, 7, 8 years old, and most of the time later than that, 15 to 17, boys are taken because if they're doing a military service, it depends on what job they're optimal for. They test it's all based on genetics, the technologies on how they fly you and teleport you from A to B is based on your genetic code. Not everybody has it. Not everybody can go. So that's a good reason to classify it from the masses. How many people are going to claim, some kind of discrimination if they don't have the genetics to go and participate? How many people be pissed off about that? Right. So that is the case, though. They had to test me for genetics before they took me. I sat there in a room with a couple grays and a reptile. Sounds cliche. They made it a laughing matter these days with the media, which works great, but that was the truth. And I sat there. We had to wait for my genetics to come back, and they said, "Yep, some people can go twice. Some people can go 20 years and they come back and they live their life. They take them again later and they do another 20 years. Some people have the genetics to do that."
Okay, and another question I had as well. So, let's do this elephant in the room, right? Because I think from what I know about the program or from what I've heard about it, I know the name Corey Good, I think, keeps coming up attached to the 20 and back conversation. I don't know why, but when I've read about this, I've seen that name pop up. So if that there is something there, that would be cool to address that, because I know that would probably be some of the comments that would come through, right? It's maybe something along those lines. So are you able to explain where that person, Corey Good, may have gotten it wrong, or maybe brought this to the public in the wrong fashion?
Put me on the spot here. I was a real fan of him in the early years, and I thought that in fact, at one point I shook his hand and I said, "Help me help you." I mean, when I was showing up to do my first interview with exopolitics.org, and I shook his hand. I said, "Help me help you," and he all but turned around and ran from me. And he's threatened publicly to sue me, saying I've taken his info. But he's also admittedly an IT guy, a professional IT person, and then he's hired a contractor called Red Torch, and he's had people hacked and followed. And I believe that when he ran out of material, he was hacking other witnesses and taking their material. There's several instances where things were said privately between not just me, other whistleblowers that have come forward, and we talk to each other behind the scenes, and we go, I said it on the phone, and then 2 weeks later he was putting it out there. And at some point, it seemed like he was given really good information in the beginning, and at some point he did an about face and started suing everybody. The Gaia network that he was on, and had a giant lawsuit around it. And it just seemed, for somebody that was dedicated to disclosure, he was all just about money, about using his information to do lawsuits and acquire money. It seemed to be that was what his mission. And he was doing GoFundMes and basically begging for money constantly. And he's still just doing only for money enterprises. Anybody else that's been genuine, that has given a great deal of information, with because it's hard to give out new information now. So many people have come forward with great details. It's hard to bring anything new. But anybody that's been credible, that's had a lot of proof, we all just want to meet each other and talk to each other. We all really, most of the people that I've met that are credible, that have had experience in these programs, and even other fringe programs, like not even the 20 and back, but people that are taken into government programs, we all want to hang out with each other. And Corey that's not the case with him. He just wants to sue everybody. And so became a lone wolf. And it's a real shame, because he could have still had a strong career disclosing the truth. But he shot himself in the foot with his terrible actions.
I appreciate your candor, and in any situation that has to do with the phenomena, it's always cool to call out the misinformation agents, the ones that muddy up the waters for the actual conversation to be had. So glad that we kind of touched that first, because I know comments will come through wanting that question to be asked. So that's awesome, because then that separates you from the grift, right? Separates the entire conversation from the grift, because as we know here in ufology, there's just a portion of the community that's just here for that reason, right? And not to look for truth or to bring answers. So that's kind of cool that we were able to address that. One thing I did want to know is, when with this 20-year period, as far as is essentially time is passing during that time, how does that future, and I guess you would know now that you're older, how does that future differ? How does that path differ from the path that you walked when you came back? Essentially, is there any difference there?
It was like there were two of me experiencing the same era. So when I came back, you want to know something that was strange? So because I was taken in 1982, and it wasn't until late 86 or 87 that I was sold off into space. So those first years, 5 or 6, I think it's about 6 years. So 88, right? Somewhere in there. It's been a long time since I did my timeline. 8 years ago, I did my timeline, really. So I've revisited a bit. But anyhow, there were parties that we were in, fundraisers, and it was the same music. So when I came back, when I heard music, there was an Aerosmith album that came out in the late 80s. In 85 or 86, there was Aerosmith album came out. And when I was driving down the road with my brother, he said, "Oh, this is that new song." And I said, "Well, this song's old." And he was like, "No, it's not." I said, "This song is super old." And he said, "This just came out this week." And I said, "No, I've heard this like 10 years ago." I was like, "This is a super old song," because Aerosmith's been around all through the 70s. And we got in an argument about it. And what was real was that it was old to me, because I'd already heard it. The other me was listening to it in Seattle at that time, but I experienced the abducted 20 years first and then was put back. Other songs, the Aha, Take On Me, that was there. Go ahead.
We're going to go ahead and take a break real quick and come back in just a moment with Tony Rodrigues as we talk 20 and back, secret space program, and a whole lot more. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. We'll be right back. All right, Damian Wyatt, I want to tell you, man, no politics up in here, man. Just come in here and have a good time, dude. Come in and have a good time. Politics is the last thing we want to talk about here. We don't care. We don't care. So keep those opinions to yourself, man, or find a different place to let that off your chest. But we're not doing that here tonight, buddy.
We're not talking about anything political so far.
Nah, so far, right? We can't help but talk about the government, right? But yeah, we don't. Which we will as well. And Deb from SAC, thanks for the awesome support of Spaced Out Radio. We appreciate the super chat. Oh, what kind of fresh hell is this? Ha 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 ha. Deborah Rooney just checking in. Appreciate you.
This is actually really great that it's an audience that doesn't know. Like at some point, I don't like going to the same audience that knows my whole story every time I talk. Like it needs to go to new people to understand that this is what life is like. Like this needs to get to these people that are like, what is he talking about? Like, it's awesome to be able to have a chance to explain it.
Yeah. I think there's just so much that when you're in the society, you think you know what's normal and you think you know what's regular. And I think that's the mold that needs to be broken, is just realizing that what we think is normal and regular is not actually that. Once you realize that, then your mind can open up to a lot of other things that are being said. It doesn't sound so far off. There's been examples of this or that, which we'll actually end up talking about as well.
Yeah, that's a great subject matter, man. I don't know. We're in a commercial right now.
Yeah. You can. Yeah, if you need to do something, go ahead. Definitely, you can go ahead and do that. We have
How
about
long I got
left. 3 minutes.
All right, I'll be right back.
Yep. Yeah, guys, politics and UFOs will merge, but this isn't a political chat room where you sit here and you give your opinion one way or the other. That could be considered vote swaying, and let people have their own peace in deciding who they want to vote for. We don't need to discuss it here. We're talking 20 and back in secret space programs and ET contact, man. That's what you come to Spaced Out Radio for, right? You don't come here to rag on candidates and things of that nature. Let's bring it back in. We got time to bring it back in. Politics and UFOs will merge, though, Mike Rivers. I do agree with you because we know the government got some splaining to do. They got some splaining to do because they've been up to some pretty bad stuff as the government as a whole. That we have evidence of, right? So let's start there, and we will do that. Kim Jelen saying she agrees. Hey, appreciate you, Kim Jelen. I am Nurse 1968. I've been a guest here before with Dave, the most fun channel. That's what I'm talking about. I am Nurse. We'd love to have you here as well. You want to come on and talk about some things? Let me know. Let's see.
I love that the guy's like, I never heard any new evidence. Where's the evidence? It's like, I just told you a bunch of evidence. You tell them, and then they just ignore it. But where's the evidence? I also put it. I can't talk in this chat, but I also put it in the YouTube chat, a YouTube video of UFOs that flew over our conference last week. Are you aware of that?
I'm not. Nope.
So Elena Denon called it out. She said the Galactic Federation is going to fly over this conference tonight at like 4 p.m. She said, be out there at 8 o'clock. 1,000 people went out to the amphitheater, and UFOs buzzed us for 20 minutes. And there's the video. I'm going to post it in the YouTube again.
Oh, wow.
That video is one of many. That's just the night vision one, but there's a ton of videos. There were TR-3B flew by, all that.
Okay. Well,
so that was an epic historical thing. That was last Friday, a week from Friday, a week ago was when that video happened. That was a public demonstration of the TR-3B and of the Galactic Federation ships. So there's a little bit of evidence right there.
There we go. That's what I like. Receipts. We talk about receipts
Got
here too.
receipts, bro.
Receipts are it's imperative. If you can get them, then I think you should, right? I just feel like you should. If
Too
you
many
can't,
people, too many people act like they don't need them at all. They're like, I'm like, would you have anything to prove? They're like, I don't need to prove it. I'm like, well, you kind of do. You know what I mean? You kind of gotta
and here we
have
go.
some respect.
And we can talk about that here. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. After hour 0.5, back half of the first hour as we come right back here with our guest, Tony Rodrigues. And we're jumping into Secret Space Program. We're jumping into 20 and back. You guys, if you're on social media, don't forget, though, you can follow us at any time. X or Instagram at Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show. We'd appreciate the follow, guys. As we go ahead and jump back into the conversation here with Tony Rodrigues. So we were talking the 20 and back. We're kind of getting into secret space. And I just wanted to kind of start this off because I know there's a lot of people out there. And look, you should remain skeptical always. You should have some level of skepticism in your approach to vetting information or, listening to a conversation like we're having tonight. Not saying that you shouldn't, but we know for a fact that, the government for sure has been up to some stuff that we could point to that you can consider it being insidious. You consider it being things you shouldn't do to citizens, things you shouldn't do to your military forces. We've examined a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, just starting off, right, we talk about Project Stargate with the remote viewing. So I've been under the impression, because of programs like that the government at some point has understood that we have some sort of, ability outside of the one that outside of what we know to be true within society. We think we only have these five senses. Sometimes those don't work very well, but I think it's because of the act of suppression that has been put on the people by powers that be around the world, and that we have the ability to do much more. So, with remote viewing, how does that kind of play into the conversation that we're having here? Like, where does remote viewing come in?
I want to do a real blitz with you, man, Rob, just real quick, okay, for the people in the chat.
Yeah.
John Charles Moyen, another whistleblower, confirmed contacting me when we were kids, after I was abducted and before, in a rescue attempt. The Seattle house I described perfectly and accurately. Went back there and I knew my way around the area in Seattle. On my mom, I'd never been there, and I have all my witnesses. My sister, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I can account for every moment of my life. I know my way around Seattle without using maps. I knew the house. I knew the people that own the house. I reported it to the government. I reported it to researchers. It was all real. And I called it all out in 2015, way before the Hillary Gate stuff. All of that happened. It's in my book. Peru. The town Puerto Tawantinsuyo, Peru, that I was stationed at in 82 to 84, January of 83 to the end of 84. I knew when the Plaza de Armas was built, and people from that town that lived there called and confirmed it. The C-46 Commando plane was found 2 years ago in Pucallpa, the exact same plane with the long-range variant, because that's the flight that it did. We were running drugs in the beginning. The plane, the series, the salt spots on series I called out was accurate about that 4 years ahead of time. The submarines that were converted into spaceships or overlapped with William Tompkins, who worked for NASA and had paperwork, was the first one publicly to say it, but I was the first one to say it behind the scenes. I'd never heard of him or met him, but I described the submarines, and that was overlap, and it was confirmed by William Tompkins, who was never debunked. Corey Good confirmed it as well, but he's been debunked many times. The Galactic Federation of Worlds did a flyby over our conference, the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, last week. Dozens of spacecraft and a TR-3B from the Earth Alliance flew over. Elena Denon called it out on that, and we've been all working together for years now, for 3 or 4 years. We've all worked together under the same pretense of this, confirming each other's accounts of what happened in space. So multiple overlap from multiple testimonies, and she called it out earlier that day and said there's going to be UFOs flying over to my knowledge, nobody's done that in front of 1,000 people. There were 1,000 witnesses. The videos are all over. I've shared it in the chat. The overlap with other testimonies, Randy Kramer, Niera Isley, and John Charles Moyen. And lastly, the place in Inyokern, which I went, the building was still there. The places I described the buildings on were classified as California special districts, which exempts them from local law enforcement. So the program that I went through as a kid, it was perfectly legal to torture little kids and give them drugs and use a advanced remote viewing and trauma-based mind control program. So that all checked out. The 3 buildings were there on site, and I went with Tyler Koala from Journey to Truth podcast, and we filmed a documentary there. I knew my way around the town, China Lake and Ridgecrest, even though I've never been there, and I can easily prove that. I've never been to Peru, and I know my way around that town, and I can prove that. So those are some of my receipts. There's a ton more, but you're gonna have to get my books if you want to go farther into that. So I'm sorry.
No,
I'm just coming back to some of the stuff because everybody's like, no receipts. I just want to squash that right now because I can receipt all night.
And that's yes, and that's welcome. Receipts are welcome for sure. Some examples that I give of maybe an experience like this. I mean, there's record of, so setting this program aside, there has been historical record of people remembering past lives, for instance, places that kids that recall places on a map that they obviously have never been in this current life, and they're able to give information. There has been, just okay. So a kid that fell and bumped his head, had amnesia, came back speaking a totally different language. I mean, come on. So when you have situations like that are documented, I'm just saying, I haven't experienced 20 and back, so I can't say what is or what isn't when it comes to that, but I could point you to other things that have been verified by other people that came to be weird but true, right? So that's what I'll just add to that as well. But with the 20 and back, someone did have a good question here. What happens if a person were to die within that period?
So I've avoided this for years. So the other thing that I saw, somebody's like, he's just doing this for money. Well, I've been doing this for 8 years. In the first 6 years, it was 2 days a week, every Saturday of every week for 6 years that I did interviews. I've done hundreds of these interviews and dozens and dozens of live talks where I've traveled to go out of pocket and paid for it. It wasn't until the book came out and I did a Patreon show that I started getting any kind of money to help out. But I'm still working for money because this is blowing up, man. This is coming to believe me, this is coming to a news channel near you. The phenomenon that you're talking about of kids bumping their head, like a lot of that, it depends on the individual account of the memory. Like, did they remember the past? Did they remember it currently? But most of those, I think, are like a past life thing. Like, we have a lot of instances that are documented that the scientists really can't do anything about, where kids go, look, I used to live down the road and I died, and that's my house there, and that's my mom, and they've gone and filmed it and done all that, and that's happened dozens of times. There's a researcher in Australia named Mary Rodwell, who's a world-class researcher, and she works with children of weirdness, shall we say. When you're a mom and dad and you go into your kid's room at night to check on them and they're floating a foot above the bed, you end up calling Mary Rodwell. She's the specialist at that. And she's wrote a couple books called The New Human and other books. They're amazing books. But it's about children. She believes that kids these days, even the autism is a symptom of a new human that's being born. Like, we're evolving. And so these kids, even some of them come out, like when evolution happens, it doesn't happen great. Like a new evolution, like imagine a lizard growing in a new arm. It's not really good arm in the beginning, but over many times that evolutionary adaptant gets strong. And she said that's kind of what autism is doing right now. These kids are gifted. She's worked with kids that could be blindfolded in a dark room and draw everything that was in the room next to them that they've never been in accurately. So like a remote viewing. And that's what I do. So I have a Patreon channel called Talks with Tony on Patreon. I want Talks with Tony. And it really turned out, I was doing interviews like this and just for like $5 a month, just to make some money. And it turned into doing groups where we do on Tuesday nights, we do like remote influencing, psychoenergetics. We all pick a target, we work on it. It's a long story. But on Sundays, I teach remote viewing, and it's really turned out to be awesome. It really has turned out to be something else, man. We do remote viewing. People can use the protocol, use the meditations, and get accurate data from sites that are, mine's sitting over there. I don't want to get up, but it's over on that other desk. Envelopes with just random numbers on it. They just get the random number and the target's written down on a piece of paper in the envelope. And using those protocols that I dug up from Inyokern, from some of my receipts in 2023 when I went there, I went back and did into the paperwork, and I dug up all the CIA declassified library.gov, the Freedom of Information Act. Everybody should check that out. And I went in there and dug up and found the funding for the contracts and the contractors that I was involved with. Was the first when they abducted me, ETs abducted me out of my room, took me to their laboratory, and the first place I woke up after that with no memory of who I was in Inyokern, California, in a portable with a bunch of other kids, a dozen or more other kids, and we were put through trauma-based mind control, given drugs, and then we were doing out-of-body stuff with the Monroe Institute in binaurals. We were doing remote viewing. They were electric shocking us. They were giving us drugs, all of it. And it was worked. And so they ended up at the end of that, they would drug us. I'd get an IV bag, and they'd put a drug in it, and I'd lose consciousness. And while I was under, other people would speak through me, and they'd get accurate information. They were asking about the drug trade. They were asking business decisions. This is how the elite keeps one up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to throw out names, but you think about somebody that never has a stock trade go wrong. This is a technology that could do that. And the Army, and this was funded from Army INSCOM, from the Grill Flame Project, which then turned into, look it up, the Center Lane Project Center Lane. So Grill Flame, all the data was only for the Army. Nobody else could access the data. It was security level 4, security level 3 or 4. Only the Army INSCOM had access to the research. It was successful. And so they closed down Grill Flame, and they opened up Project Center Lane in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas City. Am I saying that right? In January of 83. I was taken April of 82. And for 9 months till January of 83 was when they shoehorned us kids through. They thought we're clones. They called us clones. They said I was a clone. And in January, they made it the Project Center Lane, and all the branches of government had access at that point. They could started training their own remote viewers. In January of 83, the Air Force, the Navy, the CIA, the FBI, Boeing. Why does Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, why do they need remote viewing teams? I don't know, but they're on the paperwork. And I have all the paperwork in my book, Beyond Sight. So my most recent book is right here, Beyond Sight. I have copies of all that. You can read it. It's all in there. And there's a lot of receipts in there. And I'm still going, to be honest with you. I went to Inyokern, and I remembered a lot more stuff because you could go there and smell it. You know what I mean? When I stood there, I was like, oh my God, I was in shock. I got it on film. There's a YouTube video of me walking in there for the first. You can see the look on my face. Tell me if that was an acting job. And I went there. I was in shock. When I went home, it put a fire under my ass. And I started researching. I spent hours. I spent weeks researching, reading the CIA declassified library.org. And I keep finding stuff, man. There's just it's just like a bottomless pile of treasure trove of supportive evidence. So receipts all night long, folks.
Yeah, and that's good stuff too, and appreciate it again. Because like I said, you put the receipts out there, you let people process it, and they come to their own conclusions at the end of it. But you've done your part in bringing receipts. So, and just we gather here often, and we talk about things that are outside of the normal. Paranormal is exactly what these things are. And it's just it kind of blows my mind, and I've said this before within ufology, how that we're in a field where we realize there are things that we don't understand, but then some people still take a view of, hey, that's not possible, or hey, that sounds crazy, when the thing is that anything is possible at this point. It's more is possible than we ever could have imagined, and that's kind of just the outlook that everyone should have, because it doesn't point to one particular thing as being the truth. It just says that, hey, we don't understand any of this stuff, and all this stuff could be true or none of it could be true. And that's something that we find out at the end of our journey after having these conversations. So, guys, just make sure you keep that in mind as we have these discussions. I would want to know, because this is obviously, one and the same with Secret Space Program. When do you think, in your opinion, we first went out into space? We had Roger Murray put something in about Sputnik being the first thing up there and kind of the beginning of the space race. What is your belief on that?
I think we came from space originally, so it's probably been all along. Some of the elites, the rulers, the royalty, they've had access to ETs all along. When you talk about governments doing it, so that's the hubbub, is that World War I was about money. World War II was about interstellar flight. So when the Germans made contact, the Maria Orsic story, probably true. When the Germans made contact, they got a big chip on their shoulder and thought they could just bully everybody around because now they had access to ETs that were telling them how to build better tanks and better planes. So the ETs couldn't intervene, but they could give them tips, and that's what happened. And so they became bullies and tried to take over Europe, and the rest of the world outperformed them because there were other ETs involved with the elite societies that were already running the U.S. and other countries, the allied powers. So proxy wars. Dr. Sala's first book was that on exopolitics, is that we fight proxy wars for different factions of ETs in space. So because they're inadvertently interacting with our leaders. Our leaders are subscribing and working for one faction over another. That's why the world is cut up the way it is. So the Germans got into space just before World War II, like in the 30s. They went up there, and then everybody else wanted the technology, so a war broke out. After that, the Soviets and the United States knew about it. They knew they had to get to the moon. Like that's the test. Like once you go to the moon, then the ETs will talk to you, right? Then you're one of them. Once you go to another world. So the Soviets had the space race and then as soon as we got up there, we went to the moon for a few years. We quit going because they were like, okay, now you can join our federation, our galactic membership. And then it became secret. So they started going, but then they got anti-grav. The ship that's in that video that I shared on the YouTube channel, the TR3B, that's on believe me, I got more video than that. I'm going to cut up and be sharing over the coming weeks. I'm going to be beating people over the head now that I have video of a ship from the Galactic Federation of Worlds last week that was called out by Elena, who I've tried valiantly to stick up for and validate, but nobody believes her, and she gets attacked from every angle. So now that she's done that, you can't dismiss her testimony, and by proxy, you cannot dismiss mine. So I'm going to beat people up with those pictures till I die. But that just happened. And that is also a symptom of disclosure. Now they're doing that publicly. They say they're going to do another flyby at the next GSIC conference in the UK next summer or next spring. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an organizer. I don't have a dog in that fight. But I'm just saying, man, when somebody can call out and say, hey, go out there tonight at 8:00, there's going to be a fleet of UFOs flying over. And you go, yeah. Because everybody has a Skywatch. Everybody sells you tickets to a $200 CE5 Skywatch, and nothing happens. And you go out there, and when they do it at 8:00, and there's UFOs coming in and skipping off the atmosphere, and triangle, the famous triangle that everybody's caught in the act for years now, for decades, people witnessed this triangle, but nobody believed them. I got a picture of it on my Facebook. We saw it. Me and 1,000 of my friends saw it and all took pictures of it last Friday. So sorry, I got a chip on my shoulder, man. I don't want to sound aggressive.
No, it's actually please do actually. Because go ahead.
I wanted to point out what you were saying, that on this show you allow these paranormal parapsychology conversations to take place. No, they're not all true, but they're all a part true, right? So not everybody has all the pieces, but the pieces are real. And if we don't have the conversation, then the secrecy has won. They right. Get away with abusing us because they do it in secret. And so
Right.
taking the secrecy away is the first step to combating it. You know what I mean? It's very that's the first thing we need to do, and you're doing it. So I just want to say thank you for that. And the people that, and I get it, man. Believe me, I've had it, dude. There was a F and the full word, not the, you know what I'm saying, the F word, F
Mm-hmm.
Tony Rodrigues YouTube channel when I first came out years ago. The dude was telling me he was going to beat me up, and I get death threats. I get all kinds of hate, man, for what I'm saying, and all I'm doing is calling it the way I see it. And there's a lot of people that don't want this information to come out. There's a lot of things that people don't want people to know because they get away with victimizing us. If you don't know that you can be taken and put back in the same night and used as slave labor, right? If you don't even know it's possible, no one's going to believe you, and they can just keep doing it. So that's the secrecy is their best weapon. And so us talking about it is the best course of action.
Yeah,
I'm on a roll. I have not drank coffee in the last 6 hours, and I'm going like I am.
That's what. Hey, I love it. I love it. Like I said, this show, regardless, we got people definitely here live tonight, but this show will also live on after this. And so, you being able to express yourself in the way that you would like to is very important. And yeah, it's all part of having tough conversations. Sometimes it gets like that, a little tense, but that's okay. So with that being said, what I definitely want to do is make sure that let me see. I want to thank Aloha Dave for bringing that in. We do appreciate you, Aloha Dave. And also your video, would love to see that maybe because we can check it out during our, not this coming break, but the next break while we're still live. So if you could send that to me in the chat, like the link or something like that. And outside of that, what I want to know, because we only have 2 minutes till we go to break here. What is so I heard you say, okay, we went to the moon a few times. That was one of the markers to join this Galactic Federation. There's a lot of people that talk about this Galactic Federation. What is it made up of, if you have any information on that?
So there's a lot of organizations throughout space. So the idea that we have of ETs from our media, from the movies, you think that if we get into space, it'll be 6 months to get to the next star to where they have ETs living at. And then you're only our neighbors. Everybody's only talking to Pleiadians or Arcturians, right? Like that's it. But that's not the case. Space flight, once you get to once you get into space and learn what they're doing, it's instantaneous. They can go anywhere in our galaxy and come right back immediately. And they can go to neighboring galaxies. So 400 billion stars times 18 or 20, 400 billion stars. That's how many civilizations can pop here and go home in a day. So space is easily accessible and it's travel. So that's the deal when we're talking about how many ETs are in. That's why when you research it, I say this all the time. I say it all the time. If you're a researcher and you're like, okay, prove it to me, where's the proof? And you start interviewing people, it all sounds like gibberish. Because some persons get abducted by people that are military looking, and other people get abducted and out of their body, and it's like an astral ship, like all different life forms, all different species at all different levels of technology are accessible, and they can go home at night. They can, you know what I mean? Like it's instant. So there are many different groups. So you want to group up. It's just like people do. People stick together and form countries for safety. Right? If you're just get a bunch of people and you're in somebody's area, the country, the government will form, as history has taught us, and they'll come and take your stuff. So you form your own government and start trading and doing things. That's what these groups are in space. Thousands of different planets and thousands of different species clump together and form one kind of federation or a group. And so we have several groups that are competing for where we're going to be once we join them.
Okay, and we'll stop right there. We'll talk more Galactic Federation right after the break here, guys. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. You guys don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. Make sure you guys come right back if you do. See you in a minute.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we're off camera for 5 minutes, Tony. See you in a minute.
Thanks, bud.
right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, After Hour number 2. with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, and our guest, Tony Rodrigues, is joining us tonight. We're having a great conversation as we get ready. We got about 30 seconds before we come back from radio. Definitely want to thank everybody's support too tonight. You guys are all awesome. Dev from SAC with the super chat, and Aloha Dave as well. And then Dev from SAC again. Appreciate it. Yes, Dave's our leader, but he needs a red bandana and a red beard. Rob G. That's right. Make sure you let him know that as we get ready to come back from radio right now. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. As we're being joined back with our guest, Tony Rodrigues. And we've been getting into 20 and Back, Secret Space program. You guys, make sure if you're joining us from social media, Instagram, X, go ahead and hit the like button. Also, please don't forget to hit the follow. We'd appreciate it as we jump right back into the conversation tonight. It's going to be awesome. All right. So getting back into this, Tony. So let's talk Secret Space program, some more of that, because, they're Sputnik, okay, 1957. So if we're talking about, the Nazis going prior to that, we're only talking 10 years prior, 10, 15, 20 years prior to Sputnik, the official space travel. So with that being said, I'd say that's very plausible for that to be a real thing there. And you would think that not everything has been done on the up and up. As we know with the powers that be, we know that they haven't been straightforward with us on a lot of different things. And there are things launched all the time. I'm in Southern California. I'm in Bakersfield, not too far from, right in the middle of Edwards, and then also Vandenberg. They shoot a lot of rockets off all the time. And I'm always under the feeling that okay, is that a rocket or are they sending something up somewhere? That's always the question that I have. What's your outlook on the Secret Space program? What do you think that they have done that they haven't told us thus far?
Well, so they have different compartmentalized levels, and everybody at their level, they tell them they're the smartest. So, you know what I'm saying? Like people right now, I shut the chat off. Somebody very smart just told me just ignore the chat. And because people keep coming in and go, where's the evidence? And I popped off on that the first 10 minutes. So just rewind the tape if you want evidence. But people in the world, like us, the consumer, the citizens, we think that we know it all. We don't know nothing. Like the government has always been 20 years ahead of us in computer science. The AI stuff, the internet, that was all. They had it and mastered long before we ever knew it existed. There's an AI running the world right now. Like it's called the BlackRock one, the Aladdin. Go Google Aladdin AI and see what happens. It's running 80% of the assets of the earth right now. Aladdin AI. So it's been a long time ago. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of things going on. No one can make the argument that we know everything that the government does. You know what I'm saying? That the government, because the other thing is after 20 years, the CIA declassifies. And again, with the Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA, you can Google FOIA, CIA declassified library. Google that. You'll get to the library prompt. Put in Project Grow Flame. Put in UFOs. Put in Secret Space Program. Put anything that you want. Any of your paranormal guests that come on this show, take their subject matter and enter them into that prompt, and it'll spit out pages and pages that the CIA knew about better than 20 years ago. And you can go in there and start reading, and it's like it'll blow your mind. And they just have to admit it. It's the freedom. Most people don't pay any attention to it at all. So it's been going on a long time. It's good. We're going to get a disclosure. They're ramping up. They're going to tell us. They're getting ready for disclosure. That's what all these cities and the weird now they're not even bothering hiding their lies anymore. You know what I mean? It's like so obvious because they're in a hurry to disclose. We're right there. We got we got AI now, and they're going to have a lot of the technology is already coming. So the genie's out of the bottle. We already did disclose. People like me and the others like me have already disclosed what's going on up there. And it's an idea. The masses reject it. So I say it all the time, man. I can walk down, where Fremont Street is in Las Vegas?
Oh, yeah.
with the big lights and everything. Me and you, Rob, me and you can walk down Fremont Street, get a pina colada or whatever, and we can take a gray alien with us, and it can telepathically say good evening to everybody that walks by. And we'll walk right down through Fremont Street and go into the Detroit casino. And everybody that saw it and heard the words good evening telepathically in their mind will think to themselves, how'd they do that? What a good trick. Nobody would believe that. We are so programmed. We are so programmed to not believe our own eyes anymore.
Yeah.
That they have been disclosed. We had the Congress, they had the thing, the UAPs. Everybody was like, yeah, they're ours, or they're a drone or something, whatever.
Yeah.
People don't understand, put two and two together, that the UAPs, and this is F-18s with advanced classified detection means, that saw them going from inside the water to orbit in a few minutes and back again, and hypersonic speeds, and then turning. We don't even have materials that can do that. We don't even have, so the laws of physics that these things that they disclosed easily open the door to deep space, at least the deep solar system exploration. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. It was crickets. Like I said, last week we had UFOs flying over us and we got it on camera. Nobody cares. It's not on the news. It's crickets. Sharing it in the chat. Nobody cares, man. Everybody's like, well, I saw it in one. Nobody's realizing this was a public disclosure. We have disclosed there is a spaceship in orbit from a Galactic Federation of Worlds intent on helping us join them. It's here. And so we got to get our act together. But nobody, I'm telling people right now, like I said, you're sharing videos, and this has been going on for years. Nobody gives a shit. Everybody's too caught up being programmed about it, man.
You are absolutely right about that. I've had my own sighting. I had 47 objects fly right over my head in the middle of the day. And so, yeah, I know these things are here, and you're right. We're just so programmed. It's just society, the way the stigma has been laid down on everyone. You're crazy if you believe anything like that. But the thing I always point to is that let's just take a step back. Let's talk about what we do know. We know that we're on a rock floating in space that's traveling thousands of miles per hour around a ball of fire. We know that. And so we also know that potentially, from what scientists believe, that space is infinite, doesn't end. If you can understand that, then you should really be open to anything else being possible. Those two things right there sound bananas, bonkers, and they've been proven essentially. So with that being said, you got to be open at least to hearing the information and then vetting it to figure out what you think about it. But that immediate dismissal of information is what bothers me, is that, just like you said, you could bring an alien right there in the middle of Las Vegas and people will question if it's a guy in a suit or, and it's pretty sad. And the way that AI is set up, that's interesting you bring that up, because in a world or in a society where we're already being suppressed as far as who we are as human beings, our potential, we're set up now because of social media and the fact that even now we're doing this show, it's over the internet essentially. For a lot of people, they're on the other end on their keyboards or their phone devices, and anyone, if we're not sitting here like we're doing now and talking on camera, everything is words that are typed or AI voices potentially, things of that nature. So I think that just further clouds up the conversation, because then you can activate all sorts of bots that talk against what it is that we're trying to bring forward to the public. And I think that's just a big problem. But I'm with you on that. And I always try to figure out the best way to have the conversation where we're not really just coming from a side that just says, hey, all this is real, believe it. We're really just sitting here saying, hey, here's evidence, right? Let's put it on the table, and then let's talk about this. Let's talk about what we have. So with that being said, you mentioned something earlier that I feel that I resonate with, is that we came from space potentially, right? So, what is your theory on that? I just want to hear your theory. Where do you think we came from? How do you think that all happened?
Well, the official record doesn't make any sense at all. The official record is that there were sort of people like men around the world, the out of Africa theory, and then everybody walked and became these different races, and it all was just like 200,000 years ago. That's the story. 200,000 years ago, there was some version of us that was more like in between us and an ape, and we just started, you know what I mean, making nuclear powered supercarriers in a short time. You get what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden we had senses of humor, and we were like telling jokes, and we got smart all of a sudden. There's just no way that happened in a blink of an eye in 200,000 years. And there's not another animal or living creature on this earth that is anything like us. I don't care if they share our DNA or our chromosomes. They're nothing like us. You know what I'm saying? The next couple steps down, they're nothing like us. We cannot exist in the environment naked and afraid. It just won't. We won't make it. We won't live long. And so we're nothing like this environment. We're the only creature on this planet that lives in. Only large creature that lives in every single environment. We're omnivorous and we're whatever. We can live everywhere. We're the only ones. So we are completely adapted. We're extremely programmable. So we need to have this conversation. We are programmable. So it's easy to teach us to do stuff. It's easy to teach us to not do stuff. We follow the leader. We follow the crowd. So, I always cite video games. Boys are always looking for something to get better at, to prove themselves, to get the girl, right? That's basically what it means to be a boy, to distinguish yourself so you have a peacock feather so you can impress girls. A nice car, a nice job, whatever it is. So boys, when video games came out, computers, they wanted to do that, and they were first, and girls hated it. There wasn't no girls playing Nintendo back in the day. Now that everybody plays Nintendos, now women follow what the masses do because they easily see what works. And so now girls play video games because everybody does. But in the beginning, it was only boys, and girls hated it. It was disgusting to women, to young girls back when I was a kid. But now it's okay because everybody does it. So they do it. So we are programmable in that method. We are in a marketing stunt. We are programmable. The boys are programmable because you can offer them something that looks like it'll set them apart from it, and they'll jump right on it. And then the girls, you just have to make it look like everybody participates in it, and they'll be attracted to it. So we are programmable in many, many different ways. I hope nobody's going off in the chat that I'm a sexist pig.
No.
But it's the truth, man. We are programmable.
You're explaining it great, actually, perfectly. And we are, and I've always talked about this too, that it appears that human beings, when you look at everything else that's native to this planet, that we seem to be out of step with the natural balance of this planet. Like we literally do everything we can to hurt the planet rather than help it. Everything else falls in its own natural space, and it works cohesively with other things that make the planet good or better. But we seem to be the ones that stand out from that, and that always bothered me. It still bothers me. But
our leaders do that. So the humans that lived aboriginally, the American Indians, the Africans, the Polynesians, like the Aboriginal cultures, found a balance with nature and didn't exploit it. It wasn't until we had our leadership roles, the royalty, which is probably influenced by ETs, the AT influence. It's the royalty that turned into the landowners, that turned into the corporate owners that exploit the world. That we're in their system, we're in their money system. All Aboriginal people, no matter where they were, didn't have money. The Hawaiians had money, but they didn't eat up the land. You know what I'm saying? Like they returned everything. There was a balance. And so it's not until the royalty came along and took power that we started really killing the world around. When I talk about programming, and the reason I'm saying that, the reason I'm accentuating programming is because if you're an ET species that is thin and adapted to live in low gravity environments, right? You have a big head and little thin frail body because you can live in a low gravity environment. For you to go to somewhere and flip a switch in a high gravity environment is expensive. So you grow people on a planet, in a pretty good sized planet with a high gravity environment, and you can use the 20 and back technology, the cloning, and they don't even know you're taking them. When you look back, when I'm describing the 20 and back, what happened was an ET, a different species of humanoid, came in my room and took me, and I worked slave labor for 20 years, and then it put me back. What does the devil steal? He's coming for your soul. What does the boogeyman do? He comes in your room at night and takes you, and you go to hell. What is hell? You get what I'm saying? Like, all of our lore, all of our legends throughout our history describes the same experience. But we think it's like spiritual. We never put the technology aspect to it. They've been doing it to us all along. They put us here. We live in this environment when they have a job to do in a similar environment elsewhere in the trillions of worlds that they can access in a weekend. When they have an environment, they come and clone us, they program us, they put us there, and we do the job. And when we're done, they put us back, and that's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. And so the programmability and here's why I really see it is I got teenage kids. I raised 3 daughters. One's 24, one's 21, and one's 18. And I tell them all the time, you're being programmed by your phone. I wasn't like, you trust me. And I sit and fight with them. I'm like, you're wrong. No, that's not right. That's not the way it is. The kids these days are believing all these strange things. And I look at them and I go, you're being programmed because I know better. I know what's right. And then I think to myself, oh shit, where did I get that from? I got programmed too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an epiphany. What you believe, me and you believe from our generation, and I don't know how old you are, but from your generation you grew up in, we got programmed too by the cartoons and the news and the newspapers and all the songs, the radio, the songs on the radio. That programmed us to believe a certain way. We have our own version of right and wrong, and it ain't right and wrong. It's what we got programmed to believe that was convenient for our leaders. And nowadays, our leaders have a convenient thing that they want our kids to believe, and they're believing it. They're not trying to hear it from dad. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like, truthfully, when we, because I have my views of society, because I've been able to now step outside of the circle and look at society from 10,000 feet and then say, okay, we're not supposed to be doing that. That whatever that is, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And you have a lot of people, especially in this time, that are hopefully waking up. I was optimistic that the younger generation, and maybe that's why technology has merged itself into the youth at this critical time, is maybe because we're on the cusp of having that young generation wake themselves up, right? But then they throw another obstacle in the way to kind of take their attention off of that awakening process. And I'm just thinking of this in the moment because it makes sense that you would, if you had, we worked ourselves all the way down, because usually, okay, you live life, 40, 50, then you wake up and you're like, whoa, what have I been doing this whole time? This is crazy. Society is wild. I don't want to do this anymore. Let me pass on and go to this next stage. I used to always wonder why older people said that. Are like, man, what is the mindset? How could you get tired of something? But it's because you see all the tricks and things that happen over time. Then you see society for what it is. And you're like, dude, I'm done with this. Get me out of here. Right. And we've worked our way down that chain now to where you're younger and younger, where you're having your awakening. And we're almost at the point where kids would be the generation that would be awakened. And now we get social media and things thrown in their face, things to really suppress and occupy. It's like a new tool or something along those lines. I don't know what you think about that, but when we get to having these conversations, that's where my mind goes. It gets kind of crazy, man. So.
Well, you can see that there's a very real effort to provide kids with a role model of what kind of relationship should be. So, I started looking at it and I was like, because I watch my kids, right? And they don't want, they don't really care about the nuclear family model of life because they're not presented with that like we were. And I look at it and I go, man, they're trying to lower the population. And then I look back at it and I thought, well, when were they? What were they doing when they wanted to increase the population, right? And I look back and I looked on the census. There's a lot of census data that's worth, maybe I'm just a person that likes to research weird facts because of what I remember, because of my time and space, I know that it's all BS. And so I'm always looking at trying to read between the lines. When you look back at the census data, after World War II, they had the baby boom in the 50s, right? So it was World War II, and MacArthur wanted to go into China and Asia and take it over, and they said no. And so we had the baby boom, the big spike. Everybody was like, and my mom would tell me about it back then, like they didn't have birth control and they were still, like really wild. Everybody was, and it doesn't sound right when you think about how people are now. Like back then, just everybody was just like, it seemed like a free-for-all. Everybody's getting pregnant. And so they had this big population spike. People were behaving weird. And those kids that were born in that time grew up to be perfect soldiers' age for Vietnam. It was 20 years before Vietnam. So the kids, you know what I'm saying? They had a big spike in the population and bang, 18 years later, they had a war. And I went, well, that's weird. So when's the next spike in population? And that was like 80 to 86. And what happened 18 years after that? 9/11. They had another war, another big war. And now they had those come to a conclusion and they're getting rid of the population. But you get what I'm saying? Like, I can go on I can talk conspiracy wise all the way. But like you said, when you step back 10,000 feet or whatever from the facts and look at if I were in charge of everything, would I be letting this happen or why would I do this? And it's clear that they are curtailing the population. And in fact, the facts, this year, or it was last year, I think it was 23, was the first year that more people died in America than were born.
Wow.
So the United States is at a negative population rate right now. And all of a sudden they're flooding the borders in desperately to bring people in to raise the population. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's a global influence. And Europe's been like that for a long time. Japan is paying people to move to Japan.
Yeah, I heard.
They'll pay you money to move there because their birth rates are so terrible there. So they're not even going to be Japanese after a while. That's the other thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the face of the public isn't even going to look the same. I have my own theories about what they're doing with the African American populace.
Let's hear it.
I don't know how old you are, and I never want to insult anybody or touch on the same thing. But you remember when commercials were like, right, just white people?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it's now the typical commercial globally, and it's in Europe too, is a African American male and a white female as the couple, as the role models.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so they started doing that. It was like 15 years ago, maybe. When did they start with that? It was like 15 years ago.
Probably close to that. That's what I noticed. Yeah.
And now finally, and my problem with that was I never had a problem with it, but I was like, I want to see the women. Why isn't there an African American woman that's beautiful for me to look at on the commercial? You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to see the flip of it. If you're going to have interracial commercials, don't always just have the guy be black. Have them the other way. And so now we're starting to see that too. So touchy situation. I feel like I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
No, however, I mean that's okay. We have tough conversations.
And I'll say this. However, when you look at that time when those commercials started, when you look at the census data, the African American population was about 13% of the United States. Now they're 11%. So those role models are producing interracial couples at a higher rate than ever were in history, and their offspring are not being considered African American. They're a mixed. So you get what I'm saying? Like there's a real danger there. If I were an African American person, I'd be screaming that from the rooftops. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean by that for sure. There's definitely, I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but I know what you're talking about there. So here's what we're going to do. We're actually going into our last break of the night. You guys don't go anywhere. We still have at least 30 minutes here with our guest, Tony Rodrigues, as we get into tough conversations. We like to have them here at the after hours. You know that, and we will continue to do so. conversations that move the needle. That's what we're doing here. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this break.
Hey man, how'd I do?
You're doing great.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I said, it's I most of the time talking about any kind of color conversation, I'd rather just keep my mouth shut. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
But
it's data to throw on the table and then sift through it. And hey, I don't take any offense with it, right? So we're good to go.
yeah,
That's my whole thing here is, and the motto is conversations that move the needle. I say all the time, we have to have tough conversations in order to figure this whole thing out. So I'm open to it. Everybody knows here that I am as well.
well, I don't mean to come off like some kind of racist, but like I said, it's the data. When I look at that, I'm like, man, all these commercials like that, and they're all on the same page. You know what I mean? And America in the beginning really rejected it, right? So you were really getting to racist, like pissed off. And now the kids that grew up with it, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like but in the beginning, I remember the people that were racist were really like angry about it.
No,
And
yeah.
but I look at it, and the African American population is going down. It's scary. It's a scary thing.
Yeah. And I'd have to imagine it's probably that way for all races across the world, truthfully, because especially when you have melting pots like here in America, where you're gonna have interracial couples everywhere, actually, yeah, down the line,
I
that will
I thought
probably
it was just
affect
America.
all races.
I thought it was just America, but it's Europe too. Like people in Europe
Yeah.
said the same thing. All their commercials are like that. And then they have it all. They're having the immigrants come in too from the Muslim countries. Like we're getting them from Latin America. We're getting the immigration, open borders. But European countries are getting London. They're getting the Muslim countries come in. So there's a real high speed melting. Like you said, the melting pot is going on high speed right now in the last 10 years more than ever, and it's on purpose. It's not an accident.
The good thing is that here's the good thing, right? Because yeah, we know that's a thing. We know that's happening. We know if you had in extraterrestrial race, which we know they're here, but if they decided to, walk amongst us and integrate, then we'd have human slash extraterrestrial beings walking around here, and then it would. I mean, that's just what happens, when you get different groups together.
Let's
But
talk about that when we're back on, because that's a great point. Because that I think it's part of the reason they're doing all that is so that they can integrate with us too. So we get used to having, you know what I'm saying, not these little pockets of the same species. You know what I'm saying? Like in Europe and Sweden, it's all Swedish people. You go to Japan, it's all Japanese people, right? So America really was the melting pot, but in Europe and a lot of places in the world and Asia, it's all Asians. So now they're mixing it up so that when ETs come down, they'll be a little bit more accepted. You'll be more used to it. Like somebody that's got a different shaped head, or you know what I mean, like a cat person or something. When they come down, it'll be a little bit easier to stomach because let's face it, most normies aren't ready for it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, if we look at, here's what I'll say, and I'll say this again when we come back, but if we go 10,000 years, because a world without racism is what we want, right? And in getting that, we will have a lot more of interracial couples. And what that'll ensue or entail down the line is, but the thing is that it doesn't get away from us all being humanity, which I think is really the bigger thing to ascend to. And I think that's, so even with all that going on, I think at the end of the day, we end up all being humanity, and humanity as one race essentially is how we go out into the cosmos and kind of spread ourselves. And that may be what you see with gray aliens or reptilians, where they come from a planet where there's different species, and after millions of years you end up with a gray alien potentially, and that just might be just the path that we're on. So could be.
Yeah, this is a great talk off air. It's still good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like I said, conversations move the needle. Elaine, we know we're still on. We know we're still on. We love you though, Elaine. We love you. Appreciate you commenting on us and coming in to hang out with us tonight. Um,
Some good
okay.
questions, man. I'll take them if you get to it.
Yeah, yeah, we got a good list of them here right now. Let me see. Let's see. All right, we got about 15 seconds. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Space Out Radio after hour number 1.5. We're on the back half of the second hour. So we have our guest, Tony Rodrigues, for the next 23 minutes. So, guys, I have some of your questions lined up. We're going to make sure we ask some of those as well as continue the conversation. Also, space travelers, we're already on this rock, traveling space. Consider taking the next step and joining the club. That's right. You can join a Space Out Radio Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 per month by joining our Patreon as we go ahead and jump back into the conversation here. And to kind of finish this up before we start jumping into the viewer questions, we were talking about before the break, the fact that we have in this world, which we're trying to eliminate racism. So we end up getting, as a byproduct of that, a lot more interracial couples around the world. And one of my theories on that is that, I think it will definitely probably over a long period of time, it will move away from certain regions having a specific race to it. And maybe we see a world where everything is intermingled and intermixed as humanity goes. And maybe that's what we have to get to in order to kind of get out there in space. There's one point I did make as well is that, when you see these aliens that visit here as a species, a gray alien could be from wherever they come from, could be a mixture of all the races that were on the planet it lived on, right? And then now it becomes the gray alien, that's like the supreme being of whatever it is that they live there. So, and maybe we're on that same path, and actually we probably are, because after about 10,000 years, 100,000 years for sure, we'll probably end up at a place like that. So if you wanted to go ahead and comment on that, Tony.
Yeah, so the idea, the Darwinism is that we all end up as one race at the end of it. The evolution will take, basically everybody will be the same exact ethnicity over time eventually. And we talked, now that I think about it, rewind before the last break, we talked about some really polarizing stuff, and I didn't mean to do it in a way that, if anything, it was incomplete. But these are conversations, like you said, it's worth having, moving the needle. We're just talking here.
Exactly.
The other thing is, like I talked about last week with the ETs, we are close to a disclosure. And a lot of people go, okay, big deal. When I'm going to see aliens on TV. No, we're going to get ETs that are living here. They're going to move in and set up camp. Like, we're going to get trade. We're going to get visitors, and we're going to get ETs among us. Tall ones, short ones, reptilian, human ones, human weird-looking ones that are different species that, you know what I mean, where the eyes are different. Cat-like people, people that look fish-like, people that look like rats, people that look like hybrids of different animals. They're all shapes and sizes out there. And they're going to come down here. They already passed legislation a few years ago that they can suspend the Constitution and set up cities, techno cities, that an organization can pay like $50 million and buy the land and set up a city and designate it a technology city. And the human rights are suspended. The Constitution is suspended. So that opens the door for ETs to come down here and set up their own city that's next door. So think about, like, you're in a big city. I'm in Arizona. So Phoenix, Arizona, And then 30 miles out of Phoenix, there's a city that's all a certain ET organization. They have their own technology in there. You can visit, but they have different laws and different ways of doing things. So when we look at the melting pot, like we were talking off, I guess during the break, I don't know if we were still people listening. You and I were talking, it's like Europe is really having an influx of the Muslim world come in because it was all Europeans. Japan is having people come in. The United States is getting people from Latin America. The melting pot is in high gear. So we are mixing the races in the world faster than ever right now. And maybe that's part of the end game, that what they're looking at is the end game of people just being used to having different cultures so that ET cultures can be among us. And it's not that far out of day-to-day life, like it'd be easier to acclimate to them. So I think everything that's going on right now is with the mind of disclosure in its goal. So we see these weird things that are going on, all this weird stuff. I talked to a doctor. I had dinner with a few doctors from the conference last week. And I said, did we clean up the world by having the COVID shut down or the pandemic shut down? Like, did all the other viruses and the colds kind of get their butt kicked too because everybody stayed home for that month, right? Like, not only the pandemic, but the other ones too. Like, and they said not so much that it works differently than that. But it seems like we cleaned up, we sterilized the world during that time for a while. It seems like a necessary step to have other species come down and not get sick as easily. Yeah. Sorry if I'm going off the rails into another very difficult subject. But like I said, I think that all of the strange things that are happening in our life today have a post-disclosure purpose as their goal. That's what I actually believe that. So that's why I'm not too caught up on the political thing. Both sides are working at the same goal. You know what I mean? And the volcano is going to go off when the volcano goes off. Don't spend all day worrying about it or yelling at people, screaming and yelling. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, truthfully, I'm in the boat of I don't spend any time on politics. I mean, I think what it really is it's it's just another distraction. It's a game. There's really no ending to it. It's something that's just continuous and it just goes on forever, and it can tie up all of your time literally for your whole life. There's some people that are into politics from 18 years old until the day that they leave this planet, and they're just so invested in it. And at the end of the day, politics doesn't really move the needle when it comes to disclosure. So it's literally a waste of time in every sense. But with that being said, I do have an option here. And Carl, if you have any questions, Carl, go ahead and put some forward here. But let me see here. We have a question for Elaine from Elaine Lauzon saying, why do you think your memory recovery happened exactly at that time, 42 to 32 years old? Any clues?
There's a lot of things that happened at that time when I got my memory recall. It was like a perfect storm. There are many different, I don't think there was one solid reason. I got my memories back. I saw the Randy Kramer episodes on Exopolitics, and I always had the bits and pieces of my life memory, little bleed through memories. The original abduction, the first 30 minutes, I had those memories. I had memories of the geyser flying on a spaceship. I had memories of working at my place, memories of being on Sirius Colony, of having a girlfriend, and they never had a time. I was like, when could that have happened? So I just pushed them off. But when Randy Kramer explained that they use quantum time dilation and they can put you back the same night they took you in an aged, regressed body, and then William Tompkins confirmed it later that they were working on it with extraterrestrials. Nordic extraterrestrials were working with NASA on the same technology. But when I saw it from Randy, I went, oh my God, that's what they did. I was gone for it was 20-year stint. It wasn't many. I thought I was abducted several times and I just didn't remember being abducted. So as soon as that happened, that was really like a catalyst. Coincidentally, I looked later, a year later, somebody told me about Michael Relf and the Mars records, and he said that he got an MRI scan of his head and then remembered living on Mars, a service on Mars. And I look back through my medical records, and about 10 days before the memory event, I also had an MRI scan on my head. So there may have been many factors to my memories. I don't think it's just age-based. The other thing is, I've worked with a few thousand people that have come forward saying that they have had the same experience. And I've done consultations, and it's going to be the substance of my next book. what I've learned from dealing with people. And what I found is that most people don't get their memories back until the 20 years is over. So let's say if you're taking it at 20 years old, you don't get your memories back until after you're 40. After that other person is dead, basically. When they go away, that's when everybody gets their memory recall. All the people and a lot of the whistleblowers that have come forward, it's the same thing. It's better than 20 years later that they have the memory recall. Good question.
All right. And let's see. We got a question from Kira asking, Tony, have you heard people who have a new blood type that is unique and maybe a hybrid thing?
I haven't heard of any new blood types. I know that it's like AB blood type is very common in abductions, and O negative is certainly very common in abductions and people with contact. I think that it doesn't matter, and it may have something to do with just getting your memories back. When I ask people in Facebook groups, like in big groups of people that were all abductees, I say, what's your blood type? Like half of them are O negative. So maybe there's something there that helps you get your memories. I don't know. But I have not heard of a new blood type.
All right. And let's see. Okay. All right. Welcome to the show's asking, hi, Tony. Fantastic conversation. There are markers present on astronauts that have been off-world. Have you been tested for these markers in relation to bone density and muscle reduction? Thanks, Lee.
No, I haven't been tested. There are medical things that I've had in medical tests that came up. They said I'm not healthy, but if I was 70, I'd be healthy. Certain blood things. But I don't think it was my body that went. I think it was a cloned body that went there. I think I had implants that helped me with the breathing. I saw your other question in the chat earlier. Welcome to the show about the pressure on Mars. Mars has like 1% of the Earth's atmosphere, but it's half the size. So their atmosphere on Mars is actually much taller than the Earth's atmosphere. There's quite a bit of atmosphere on Mars. And I believe we had implants that helped us make the most of the air on Mars. And we had oxygen tanks as well. But as far as bone density, anything, I haven't been tested. I've lived my life from 10 years old, and I was very healthy. I was an athlete in my younger years, and I've been pretty healthy since. I'm in my 50s now, so how do they say the check engine light is on? But I'm still getting on. I got some aches and pains, but I have a little slightly easier lifestyle than I worked 30 years in construction. I worked a very laborious job as a trade, so I've been able to not do that now and work on the projects that I'm doing. So as far as those tests, I don't think that they would come up with anything, because I don't think that this vessel went. I think it was they clone you and they used consciousness transference. The reason I say that is because when I woke up, I had no memory of where I came from. And then I lived the 20 years. And when they put me back, like they put me back in the original body, I had no memory of the 20 years, but I had all my memories back from prior to the abduction. So I think that your consciousness is something that can move from body to body.
All right. And Carl Bentner's asking, when you were in the SSF, did you ever hear of a craft called the Citadel 777?
So no, I don't remember the SSF. For one, I was in the Ceres Colony Corporation and the Mars Colony Corporation. We really didn't call it the Secret Space Program or the Secret Space Force. And the craft, the Citadel 777, doesn't ring a bell to me. The craft that I served on had German names.
All right. And Elaine Lazone, what would you suggest to do with the person you encounter and find out that person is right now doing a 20 years back and forth program?
So like I said, I'm not lying when I say over 2,000 people contact me over the last 8 years. They saw my interview and they went, oh God, it's happening to me. I think I've had it happen to me. Some of them, I can't make heads or tails of it, really. They tell me what they remember and I can't help them. A lot of them I can. We sit and look at when things happened in their life and look for patterns. And in a lot of people, things start to shake out, and because they take people like clockwork. They take you and they put you back. And so there's a schedule that happens when somebody is a member of these programs. There's a schedule in your real life. You have personality changes. You have things happen on a schedule. And that's what I kind of flesh out. So that's the best supporting evidence I can have for people. But other than that, I would say the best thing a person can do if they have a strange memory of an abduction event or seeing an ET is to write down when it happened and anything else that ever happened that was unusual in your life that other people don't have. And so just keep a journal of when it happened and pay attention to the distances of time in between each episode.
All right. And then Jay Truthseeker asks, does Tony know anything about the Apunians of Peru and the people who live at the bottom of the ocean and of the Star Island ships like High Brazil?
That's a pretty good question. So the ships, the High Brazil stuff is just legend. I know as much as anybody else does, just legend. We did drop cargo off to an underground civilization in Brazil. It was in the Catarina Mountains of Brazil. There was a civilization. They were light blue skinned people. They looked like people, looked exactly like Americans, but they had light blue skin and they were taller, and they were xenophobic. They didn't want us around them. And we would take cargo to them, and it was inside a mountain in the Catarina Mountains in Brazil. So that's there. So there is a ancient civilization that lives under there, as far as I remember. So, but all the other ones that you named, I don't ring a bell.
All right. Kim Jellin asks, roughly how many kids in the program over the years?
Millions. It's in the millions. I did the math one time when I think about 4 ETs working and taking 2 guys a night, and then a base the size of a shopping mall with maybe 10 layers. It's a few 100,000 kids a year. And so over 10 years is millions, a few million people. And there could be several of these bases. It could be dozens of these bases. It could be 10 million people a year going. And so over 10 years, 100 million people. It's a significant dent in the populace. And so there's enough people that don't go that are there to debunk and go, oh, you're crazy. There's nothing like that happened. Right. So it's and then when you look at the economy side of it, of that kind of a labor force they could draw on to do projects up there and elsewhere throughout the galaxy, it makes a lot of sense. So they may have been taking millions of us all along.
All right. And I have, let's see. Okay. Welcome to the show. Asks, is it possible the 20 and back phenomena is a mental constructed illness, a cult-like induced narrative?
So the term is an egregore. And so I've considered that. So my prevailing criticism that I get from people that really never read my book or don't know any of my evidence or my story, they just say it's an egregore or they're screen memories. So there are a lot of people out there rallying around the fact that they took me, so aliens abducted me or somebody abducted me, and through some process gave me 20 years of memories that are accurate of all places around the world, of drug smuggling, of aliens and living in space, knowing that Ceres had salt deposits on it, and then put me back to be a woodworker for 30 years. They put me back in my body so that I could be become not a smart kid, but a substance abuse person through my 20s and be a wood floor refinisher. So they did all that to put screen memories in somebody that really had no effect in society whatsoever. So that doesn't make sense to me. Why would they do that? It's easier to say it's real. And with the overlap of dozens of other credible witnesses that have been researched by guys with PhDs that are now starting to call up UFOs to do public appearances, it doesn't make sense that that's the case. But I do consider that. So welcome to the show. That's a good question. Believe me, if I didn't prove it to myself, I would never be in front of a camera trying to talk to strangers about this stuff. It's embarrassing. My kids have been ridiculed in school. My wife couldn't get her head around it. We had to separate. I've had, like I said, death threats. I have people that hate me. I get my phone hacked every month. I catch people hacking my phone. My computer is down right now. I saw UFOs. My girlfriend, her computer is down. She got kicked off her stuff. And then my computer is down and it's brand new. And so my phone gets hacked constantly. I constantly, this lifestyle has come with a lot of cost. Saying this publicly has a huge cost. It's not like I'm not doing this for attention. And if it was a screen memory or some mental illness, the other thing is you would expect other mental illnesses to prevail. And I'm a pretty sane guy. other than being a little forgetful when I don't get sleep.
Definitely. Now, Angels Are Live. Nikki, she wants to know to ask you about control rooms and orders.
I don't know, like which control room. There's many possible control rooms up there. Like I sat in on the mission briefings on my ship. There was stuff like that. I'm not sure. And Angels, I don't really have the context of that question.
Okay. And let me see. I have Elaine Lazone again. Actually, no, I don't. I have let's see. Deb from Sacramento. Tony, have you heard anything about Elon Musk in any capacity?
Heard? No. But I suspect. So Elon Musk, in a lot of his interviews, he gets asked a question and he sits there like this and goes, and then answers this brilliant answer. And then they ask him and he sits there and takes a pause. I think he's already got a Neuralink and the Starlink system. So what bothers me is that the Ceres Colony Corporation reported to the high command was in Antarctica. So the German high command of the Secret Space Program was underneath the ice in Antarctica. The first place that Elon Musk put Starlink internet service was not over Los Angeles, where there'd be the most people paying, or New York City, where there'd be the most market, where you're going to put internet globally, but you'd first put it somewhere profitable if you had to choose. The first place he put service was Antarctica. The very first Starlink satellites were in Antarctica. And then it seems like he's got a Neuralink. And I mean, how many people can start a car business and have investors stick with them, let alone an electric one? And then rocket ships, and he just knocked down the cost of rocketry by 60,000 times. So 1 pound is $60,000 cheaper than it was. So anybody just whip that out without, you know what I'm saying, without the government stepping in and saying, we're going to take this. Believe me, go make some free energy devices and watch what happens. The government will come and check it in and it'll be gone. And then he just revolutionized privatized space flight, and the government's just sitting by thinking, okay, great job. Here, take these $1 billion. It doesn't make sense to me. And so I think that he's another one part of the agenda, that the goal of Musk and his companies are a post-disclosure society. That's the goal, why he's there. And he's shaking it up. So, and
I thought about that recently, and I thought about the fact that, okay, with this Starlink is very useful for a lot of those areas of the world that don't get service currently, which are usually the places where things are being tested at and people are going out to try to uncover different things. So if they were to use internet out in those areas, they would obviously be using Starlink, which obviously is being monitored by Elon Musk, which who knows where that information goes or where that data ends up. So that's a whole thing by itself. But we have about 30 seconds here. I want to make sure, because as soon as we go to break, I have to let you go immediately. So tell everybody where they can find you at.
TonyRodrigues.com. I'm having a conference in 2 weeks here in Sedona. It's called Odyssey Sedona. You can click to it from TonyRodrigues.com. You can find all my books, my Patreon channel. I teach remote viewing. It's a blast. The Alpha group is where you'd start out for that. I have all my books available there. I have old interviews, my original ones with Dr. Sala. I have a memory course that's got to get relisted on there. I got to fix the link. And I spend most of my time in live groups on Patreon, but you can find me there. And Odyssey Sedona will be teaching remote viewing as some of the best people in the world come in there. And we're going to teach some high-end remote viewing techniques in person here. So there's my blurb.
Awesome stuff, Tony. I really do appreciate you coming in and speaking with me tonight. And like I said, we have tough conversations here. So I'm glad that you were a great sport here, fielding questions as well. And obviously criticisms that people may have of some of the things we talked about tonight. So I think that moved us forward.
If people didn't criticize what I'm saying, it'd be weird.
All right, Tony.
You know what I'm saying? It'd be weird.
Well, let's make sure we do this again, Tony. I'll be contacting you.
Conversations that
Rob, you're good at
the other side of the break. Take care.
Listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we are clear, guys, and I will see you guys right after this break. Hour number 3. Don't go anywhere. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. As we go ahead and thank our guest, Tony Rodrigues, for coming on in. Awesome conversation for hours 1 and 2. If you missed it, hop in the archive, youtube.com/, that's Spaced Out Radio. So we get ready to come back from our radio break right about now. Welcome back, everyone, to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. So after hours radio show, if you didn't know, we definitely want to thank our guest Tony Rodrigues for coming in and having a great conversation tonight. Also, we'll be getting in some good stuff like Steve Stockton in just a moment. The after hours wrap up with Drew Banky and also some UFO weird news. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay right here. This is where it's at, right here at the after hours radio show. As we go ahead and get ready to jump right on into it, and like I said, we definitely appreciate having Steve Stockton as being a part of the After Hours and the Spaced Out Radio family. I can't even speak about it here. So we're going to jump right into Steve Stockton. Here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries.
Next up, we have the case of Jojo Dillard. On November 9th, 1995, 21-year-old Jojo Dillard left her home in Callan, County Kilkenny, to take a bus to Dublin, where she was supposed to meet up with friends. After spending the afternoon at Bruxelles Pub on Grafton Street, she planned to take the bus back home around 10 p.m. However, she missed the last bus of the night and had to board a different one that would take her somewhat close to her final destination in Naas, County Kildare. With no other plans for the evening, she hopped off that bus and began hitchhiking. This was a common occurrence at the time. After hitchhiking her first ride to Moon, Jojo called a friend from a payphone. She promised to be home soon, as someone had just pulled over and offered her a ride while she was making the call. As soon as she hung up, she presumably got into the car and was never seen or heard from again. Even though her family continuously asked for updates and assistance, the police initially refused to provide any help. They believed Jojo voluntarily disappeared and would reappear on her own eventually. During the evening, when Jojo Dillard disappeared, a truck driver claimed he saw a young woman running naked through Moon. The driver and his boss were traveling through the area at the time and spotted the visibly distressed woman, but they did not stop to offer assistance. They did, however, call the police and were promised that someone would immediately go to the location and investigate. The driver claimed that he later learned the woman was not Jojo, and authorities confirmed that it was actually someone else. Now, the murder of Jojo was only recently declared by authorities, and now the police are searching for any traces of remains. The case was reopened a few years ago, and the Police Service of Ireland issued a statement to the public and Jojo's family. They now believe she was a victim of homicide and that her cause of death was most likely due to violent means. This case is filled with an extraordinary amount of information, largely due to the relentless effort of Jojo's family, particularly her devoted sister. They've taken it upon themselves to investigate the case, feeling let down by the authorities from the get-go. Hiring investigators and following leads has become their own responsibility. Despite all their efforts, the truth behind Jojo Dillard's disappearance remains elusive, and sadly, she is not the only young woman to go missing in that area. Next, we have Jamie Herdman. At only 26 years old, Jamie Herdman was a skilled chef from Whakatane, New Zealand. He had failed to work at a furniture removal company in Broome, Western Australia, when he disappeared. During his free time, Jamie poured his passion into renovating a Nissan utility van that he dreamed of taking for a cross-country trip across Australia. After completing his project and waiting for the perfect moment, Jamie finally set off on his long-awaited road trip. Jamie's family reported him missing on December 5, 2006, when they couldn't reach him during his trip. An investigation was launched, and authorities discovered that Jamie was last seen hitchhiking at Dally Waters, approximately 317 miles from Darwin, where his family believed he was headed. His van, which had a history of overheating, was quickly located abandoned near a roadhouse on Stewart Highway. Inside the unlocked van, authorities found Jamie's clothes, phone, credit cards, toothbrush, and some cash. However, his keys were missing. In November of 2006, Jamie made the unusual decision to travel through the center of Australia on his way to Daly Waters. His brother Carl described this as bizarre. Jamie was an avid fisherman, leading his family to believe that he would have more likely chosen a route along the coast. However, Carl reported that Jamie had left Broome suddenly and without informing anyone, not friends, family, or even his employer. The family suspected that Jamie may have received a warning from a friend about someone who was after him or planning to harm him in some way. Everyone held on to the hope that Jamie was simply unaware of the search efforts to find him and that he was out there, somewhere, continuing his journey and still safe. There was also the possibility that he had become stranded in a remote Aboriginal community, cut off from the rest of civilization due to severe flooding. But as more time passed, without any word from Jamie, it became increasingly unlikely that he would be found alive. Despite extensive search efforts on land and in the air, no trace of Jamie or any clues as to his whereabouts have ever been discovered. He remains missing to this day, along with many others who have traveled through the isolated Australian outback and never returned home. And finally, Joshua Jones. Joshua Jones, a 29-year-old man from Hurst Rise in Matlock, Derbyshire, England, left his home on December 12, 2020 at approximately 11:30. He told his wife, Talia, that he was going to the pharmacy and would be back soon. Before leaving, he kissed his 2-year-old son and wife goodbye, but never returned. At around noon, CCTV footage captured Joshua at a department store and then later at a nearby Sainsbury grocery store. Witnesses reported seeing him hitchhiking on the A632 towards Chesterfield at around 4 p.m. Prior to his disappearance, Joshua had texted his wife saying, "I love you to the moon and back." This mysterious vanishing led to multiple reports to the police about potential sightings of Joshua. However, no one has been able to locate him since. When he disappeared, he'd been wearing a gray super dry jacket and blue jeans. The sleeves of the coat were light colored and the inside was green. Other identifying features include a Japanese-inspired tattoo on his right arm featuring a dragon, a koi fish, and a crane. On his left wrist, there was a tattoo in Talia's handwriting that read, "To the moon and back," with a red rocket and runes surrounding a moon inside. Despite the efforts of authorities, including drone searches, mountain rescue teams, and a helicopter, Joshua Jones could not be found nor any information about his disappearance. There are no leads or evidence in this case. His wife claimed that she wasn't surprised that he couldn't be seen on CCTV footage because there were only cameras in central Matlock. Talia also mentioned that her and Joshua had often talked about leaving society behind and building a treehouse to live in. During the pandemic and lockdowns, Joshua struggled with feeling trapped and anxious. He refused to seek medical help, believing time would heal his wounds. Talia remains hopeful that her husband is still alive and possibly living in the wilderness, as he was skilled in survival and loved the outdoors. Now, there is no record explaining the reason that he would have had to possibly leave his wife and son behind intentionally. However, the day before he vanished, his car had broken down, and both he and Talia were concerned about the expenses of getting it fixed and how that would affect plans to purchase Christmas gifts. On top of that, rent was due, and they had yet to shop for their holiday meal. Talia speculates that the stress of their life together may have pushed him to flee. Unfortunately, there is no further information on this case, and Joshua Jones remains missing to this day.
All right. And that is Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Persons Mysteries. Once again, we want to thank Steve Stockton for being a part of the After Hours radio show each and every weekend, actually every day of the After Hours radio show. So shout out to Steve Stockton. We do appreciate you. And as we go ahead and get ready to jump into our next segment here, the After Hours wrap up with your guy, Drew Banky. Let's go ahead and get to it. All right, jumping into the after hours wrap up with our guy Drew Banky. Drew Banky, man, appreciate you coming on in. How have you been, sir?
Doing great, man. Got some family in town visiting, mother-in-law, and it's just been great just making memories, you know.
Yeah, I like that. Making memories. And for some, it could be a great time when you have in-laws. Sometimes it could be not great for the in-laws, but I'm glad to hear that you, sir, are having a
Yeah.
positive experience with your in-laws. That is an awesome thing.
Oh yeah.
Man, appreciate you setting up the Tony Rodrigues tonight. It was gonna be awesome conversation. I kind of felt it, kind of knew it, and then it was, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
see, Drew knows my temperature, man, and that's what I love about it. He already knows.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the guy right here, and it was exactly that. So
Yeah.
appreciate you, bro. Always.
Yeah.
And getting into the conversation. So what'd you think about it? And did you have anything in particular that you wanted to point out or talk about?
Yeah. First thing, you know, pushing the needle, you know, pushing the needle. Like that's what we're about. Like, and that's, you know, I got a eclectic group of friends, you know, and you know, a interesting contact list and everything. And I'm very blessed to know Tony and know him personally. And before I heard his first story, I was a guest host on a different station, and he come on as a guest. And I heard about his story before, but I didn't get to like hear it from him. And through the course of that interview, I really like opened up to a lot of stuff that I didn't experience myself. And you know, I guess I want to present everyone with a question like that they can ask themselves. Who has had an experience that they were afraid to tell someone about, you know, that nobody would believe them? You know, how many, a lot of people can raise their hand when that question is presented. So when someone brings forth a conversation that, you know, a lot of people might feel is uncomfortable or might not vibe with or might not believe because it's far fetched, that is their experience. Like, you know, Tony's. I mean, I think people really got to know Tony, especially towards the end of it. Like Tony's a real person. Like, you know, and who's to judge him that happened or not? Because I've had several experiences that I was afraid to share because it sounded so crazy. But I think it's important to share those, you know, because it was all those things are very real for me. Like, but I don't have memories of the 20 and back program or anything like that, like being off planet. But who's I don't judge it either, like because I know who Tony is through speaking with him and interacting with him over time, and I know that he's a real person. So I think we need to have these conversations to push the needle.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, Drew. And here's I look at it, I try to bring logic to all these conversations that we have because I'm a big believer in you can judge, you know, the future based on things that have happened in the past. And so when we sit down and we talk, have conversations, and we hear stories about things that experiences people have had, you have to kind of look at what we know about what we do know. And we know some weird stuff. Just like I pointed out earlier, we're on a ball that's floating in space. That's weird
Oh yeah.
to me. Very weird to me. We all live on this ball. Everyone that is watching this show tonight, maybe some people off planet are watching too. I don't know, but for sure, all the people that are on planet here with us, we're all floating on a rock in space, in a space that is supposedly infinite, that doesn't have an end. That we essentially know that. And you know, when it comes to having these sort of conversations, if you start the conversation with that, then I think the rest of the conversation that follows, you should be able to have an open-minded approach to anything that's being said. Is it all going to be true? We don't know. Is it you know, we just don't know. That's the point, the reason why we sit and we talk to these things. But I can tell you some of the other things that I look at. I look at situations where I've definitely had dreams, things I consider dreams, that could be looked at, if you speak to other people, as astral travel. I've been to places literally in a dream, and this is, and I've said this before on this show, where for 2 weeks straight, I would go to this same place. This was about 20 years ago. I mean, detailed as ever. The streets, detailed. Every little intricacy of where I was detailed. And I went there for like a 2-3 week period in my dream. Every night I went, laid down, and went to sleep. I went right back to that place, right back to that place, right back to that place. And it happened for like 2 weeks straight. That happened at different times in my life as well. It would go maybe 5 years, 10 years, and then I'd be back at that place again. Then even most recently, the most recent time I've had that what I'll call a dream was probably maybe within the last 5, 6, 7 years, somewhere in there, where I went back to that place again, exact same place, details exactly the same. And oh, is that just a dream? You know what I mean? Is it just a
Yeah.
dream, or am I essentially astrally traveling there? The more I'm opening up to the possibilities, then I feel like, okay, maybe I was actually there, because you have those dreams that feel so real that you can't distinguish reality, quote unquote, versus what it was that you experienced. So, with all that being said, knowing that we're on a ball floating through space, in space that's supposedly infinite, and then having these experiences that we have, who's to say that these things aren't true or aren't real? You know what I mean? I don't
Exactly.
think
Like,
we can say that at any point right now.
I mean, 15, let's just say 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if you had told, the general public that they could drive down the road and walk into a store and buy weed and walk out, you know, or 15 years ago or 10 years ago, before all the Tic Tac stuff coming out, if you would have said that the government was going to release videos of what they openly admit is ET craft, well, not ET craft, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UFO, like, but generally speaking, they're saying that there's someone out there flying these craft, they're from off planet. If you would have said that 15 years ago, people would have called you crazy. Now the general public understands that we are not alone in this, planet. There's the galaxy goes on and on, it's infinite. So like I've said over and over in my wrap up, this is the same. It holds the same pattern. We need to open up to a different level of understanding, and open up to truths that may be possible.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not saying believe Tony or not believe Tony, but we need to open up and listen to people's stories, like, and listen to what people's experiences, because we might just learn something from it. Because I know, and props out to Tony for saying some hard stuff in public, like, and I know it from personal, like my face-to-face encounter near Chaco Canyon, the very first time I said that, and pretty much any time I have to say it, it's hard to say it. It's embarrassing, because I know I'm gonna get ridiculed for it, but I know I'm also gonna hit the ears I'm supposed to, and that's ultimately I got to share it, and I give props out to Tony for being brave to come out and do that, knowing that he's gonna get ridiculed for what he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why we, address the elephant in the room immediately. Like, hey, let's just get to it. Let's get it over with. Let's get it behind us, so we can actually have the conversation that we need to have. And I think we definitely accomplished that. And yeah, I can appreciate someone coming out, even despite critics that may have been in the audience, which I love, by the way, because I want this to be more of a, not just people within ufology conversation. This should be a humanity conversation for people, period, across the board. So I invite skeptics alike, people from all walks of life, to come in and have these conversations and give your opinions in the chat, like some people did tonight. Some people did not buy it at all. Some people had very critical statements or comments to make. I'm fine with that, and he's fine. I'm glad that he was fine with that, because
Yeah.
it allows us to flesh it out and kind of, okay, what do you not agree with? Okay, that's cool. Now I understand your perspective, and we can move forward and keep the conversation going. So
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, this is spaced out radio, This is what
Exactly.
this station is. This is what we talk about. We talk about stuff, and sometimes it's gonna be new stuff that comes up. And it's gonna and that's what this is about. Having people on here sharing their stories, pouring out their heart, and if it has to do with paranormal or space, like that's why we have these people on the show. Like,
Yeah, but don't be mistaken though, because we definitely, don't have a problem with people who point out people who aren't being truthful, because hey,
sure,
I'm totally in a boat where my opinion of that is that embellishment and things of that nature don't help move the needle. And those are the
I totally
things,
agree.
and I really hate wasting time on conversations like that. And not to say that I've ever had one with anyone that I've had, but at the same time, I would, when we get ready to book a guest, we get ready to bring someone on, I want to make sure that this is coming from, a great place in that person's heart. Their intent is genuine in wanting to get the message out and to have the conversation, because I think, this is just the tip of the iceberg. When we look at this, if we believe if we could take everything that has ever been said and we can look at, 1% of it, 5% of it, and say that 5% of it is true, that's still a lot of wild stuff that people have experienced. And you just have to wrap your mind around that fact, that even if you try to write off 95% of things that are being said, that 5% is still some really, really mind-blowing, mind-boggling, strange stuff. And then when we get into, because I'll tell you, when I first came into, getting into all this stuff, I would look at like the my lab stuff, and I still have questions about my labs, and just the government involvement in taking people and doing whatever it is they do with people. I've always looked at that as like, why would they do that? Or that doesn't sound like something that, but the further that I get into this, and then things that are uncovered, uh the Project Stargate, and the fact that the government was spending time and money on something as wild as remote viewing that would seem wild to other people. They'd be like, why are you spending money on that? A lot of the skeptics ask those questions. Why are you wasting money on finding UFOs? Why are you wasting money on the remote viewing? And because there's something to it. There's something to it that they know that they're not telling us. And therefore, that's enough evidence right there to show you that there's other things going on that we don't
Sure,
understand yet.
sure. This if you're hearing Tony in the background, that he's talking about the conscious connection. A lot of times, he's coming back to that, and there's who knows how deep that goes. Like like you said, like I think you put it perfectly just a moment ago. We're only starting to see the tip of the iceberg. It's only starting to unravel. The programs that the government has that they have admitted to. Like, who knows how many other projects are like that? Like Mockingbird. All these different things that we know. Like, there is evidence coming out. It is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that these projects existed, and there's more and more and more every day that's coming out, that they other projects they're coming out. Who knows how far it goes? Like, we need to set back and like, okay, like with an open mind, because like I said, last week or whatever, we're losing certain things. We're evolving. We're losing organs, losing our, we're evolving into constantly, and we need to open up to how far the onion goes. And it's only a tip of the iceberg. And I guess
You
I'll
are
leave it at that before we go to break.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As we get ready to go to break right here, a fantastic conversation here, having the wrap up session here with Mr. Drew Banky, as we always do, guys. So basically, just don't go anywhere, because we're going to be right back in a few moments here as we get ready to get to the back half of this hour and the end of the show. We still have the rest of the wrap up plus some UFO weird news. So, guys, don't go anywhere. Stick around. You're already here. Let's go to the end. Right here on Spaced Out Radio. The After Hours Radio Show. At that. All right. We are clear.
I think we should watch that video real quick. If you can pull it up.
What do you have the link?
I sent it to you. It's
Facebook.
Yeah, it's from Facebook.
Are you sent on Messenger?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's see.
Let me see. I should be
It's
able
that
to
TR3B or whatever you're talking about.
Good. Okay. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
from Elena Dan.
Oh man, hold on, Drew. Drew and Tony. Oh, okay. Here we go.
There it is. Yeah, just the single one.
All right. Let me see.
I watched this a few moments of it.
All right, and here's the video that Tony alluded to during the interview, guys. We can play it during our break here, so I'll go ahead and bring it up. Take that horrible sound down a little bit.
It's like it's in slow motion or something.
Yeah, and I'll pause it as well. Let me get it in the frame here. Take a good one here.
So, Tony just sent me this. Oh, this is a good one. Share this one. I just sent you a different one.
All right. And you see the three lights there. And let's see here what the next video looks like here.
Oh, yeah, this is way better. You like this a lot. Everyone will like this a lot better.
Are those more birds?
Yeah, Tony just sent me this. And I'll share this in the chat, guys. Let me see. All right, I just shared it in the chat, everyone, this clip right here.
There's a fleet flying together, guys. Do you see where we're pointing the laser? There's a fleet flying together. They look like birds. They're not birds.
And then there's that one.
Kind of reminds me.
Oh, shit. What is that? It's a bird.
Down a little bit here.
Oh, that's one.
I mean, yeah.
Some good ones.
There's definitely something there, man.
That's some good ones, man. I gotta say, it's some good ones.
And it seemed to be very high up, and definitely not a satellite for sure.
Yeah, I still see it.
We got Mothman saying that ISS. I don't know.
Some are going to try to say drones. However, I will tell you that
they're interacting. So
these things
that's not
remind
satellite.
me of my sighting.
I will say that's not satellite movement, like them going back and forth in and out like that.
Yeah, I mean
It's good ones.
that's definitely some good stuff. Yeah. Now it's time to vet it, right? Now it's time to vet it and take and see what you can figure out about it.
Yeah.
But this video is what it is. I mean, yeah, objects moving across the sky in a formation, pretty high up. Yeah. All right. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. We get ready to come back from break here. Awesome stuff, Tony Rodrigues. Thanks for sending those over. We appreciate you. And we got about 20 seconds here before we come back.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks for the awesome super chat as well. Aloha, Dave. I see you there. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3. Actually 2.5. We're on the back half of the third hour, which means we're getting ready to close this thing up soon, as we have Drew Banky here joining us with the after hours wrap up. Like always, we're getting in some really great conversation, guys. If you're on social media, which I think a lot of you are, 300 watching, over 300 watching, most on social media. Don't forget to follow us, or even come over to YouTube and give us subscribe. We'd appreciate that. And I wanted to do that earlier, but I want to definitely take time now and shout out everybody that is watching from social media. It's probably at least, I think, 200 watching over on X at this moment, and Twitch between the two. So welcome and thank you very much for coming on over. Please consider hitting that little heart button right below the video. We would appreciate you guys for doing that. And yeah, so jumping back into this, Drew, we just watched some awesome video on the break here that the radio audience wouldn't be able to see, but I can tell the radio audience that it was a video that Tony alluded to earlier in the interview tonight, where they all went outside at the convention and basically had almost a CE5 situation there, where a craft flew across the sky. A triangle, looked like triangle-shaped craft. There were definitely 3 points of light close together, and then also would appear to be like a fleet of lights going across the sky at a pretty quick, pretty fast speed. Seemed pretty high up, and amazing footage. So it's there for you guys to look at. And yeah, I mean, obviously we want to vet everything that we get. That's just hardcore evidence right there. And we'll see where it goes. But awesome stuff, nevertheless. And what did you think about the footage, Drew?
I think it was amazing. Obviously we need to go through all the steps to vet it out and make sure there was nothing in the area, no satellites, this, that, and the other, and no aircraft, military aircraft, et cetera, and go through all our normal steps. But initial reaction, amazing footage. There was movement. It was not a fixed line like none of those lights had a fixed line of sight, that didn't move like a satellite would. They changed directions, moved in and out. So very impressive footage. And yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, it is like you say, hey, it is what it is, right? It is what it is until it ain't what it ain't. So until it can be shown that it isn't anything, it's technically a UFO at this point, unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is. And like I said, one thing I will say, though, to anyone who does go in to research this video, it just happened here recently. So that's good, because one thing you may not know, which I found out in my own sighting, is that when you go to try to pull a FOIA FAA records, the FAA, for some reason, and I probably know why, but they only hold the information for like 45 days from the event. So, and then they actually purge the data. Why? I have no clue. And I have a feeling they really do hold on to it longer than that. But obviously a FOIA request for radar data is a good, tool to have when you're trying to prove something to be true. So a short time frame for you to actually request that information, I think, goes directly against being transparent and trying to let us know what it is or what isn't up there. So anyone that's researching, just know you only have 45-day window from the date that happened for you to pull radar data on it. And if someone does pull it, please let us know, because we'd like to hear more about this this sighting here. So
it's in
yeah.
Colorado, so you know what I'm
Oh,
saying.
and it's
I'm
in
partial to
Colorado.
Colorado. Like we have, I think that I don't know what it is about Colorado. There's a lot of sightings here. You know, all the way from Denver, all the way on down. Even there's so much wilderness here. There's so much wildlife. It's like I said all the time. There's Colorado is a hot spot, and it's becoming more and more well known. This was over Denver, Westminster area. So just give Tony still messaging me in the background, and let me know certain things. So yeah, check it out. You know, chop it up, and if you find evidence it was something else, let us know. But right now it looks like to me as UFOs or something. And there's a lot of things that happen in the sky. I've seen crazy things happen in the sky too many times here in Colorado.
Here's what I will say as well. I think we know that drones are mandated by the FAA, and you have to register. You have to have a registered drone if you fly above a certain altitude. I think it's above 250 feet or something like that. It's somewhere along those lines. So there are some things to where if that ended up being a drone, because obviously drone is still on the table for a video like that. Depending on how high it is, it would have had to have been registered with the FAA in order for it to legally take flight. Obviously, someone can just put a drone up and kind of go against that if they wanted to. Although, for this here, I'm sure it would have been something if it was just a drone that should have been tracked on radar as well as some sort of object on radar. So I think the FOIA request for radar data might be a good way to go on trying to figure that one out, or at least start to get to the bottom of that. Yeah. So, there's people out there that say that it's convenient that it happens during a convention. You could look at that a couple different ways. You could definitely look at it as being convenient that it happens to happen at a convention based around UFOs or CE5, and then it happens in front of a bunch of people. I get that, and I can see where that could be a true statement. But then at the same time, if CE5 is a real thing, which a lot of people say that it is, then it'd be probably the normal that you could you could almost count on seeing something at a CE5 convention. So
Yeah.
that could go both ways. You could look at it either way, both sides of the coin. And let's see. Deb from Sacramento is asking a question here, and thanks for your awesome super chat. And the answer to your question is yes. He wants to know, we have a live show that we do for the radio audience over at the Social Dig, and she wants to know if we can do Halloween stories tonight. Why not? We can do that, Deb. But with that being said, so yeah, I mean, I think we touched a lot of good things here. The secret space program is still a thing that I want to go further into. So Tony, we got to have you back soon. Let's get him back on the calendar.
Yes.
And so we can talk more about that, because I'll tell you what, you based on historical data. Now, this is always where I go with it. I'd like to base things off of things we already know. And we know that the government definitely holds things back, or doesn't tell us, or not forthcoming or transparent with some of the information that they have. So I always have to question anytime I see a rocket go up. It could be just a test, just as they're saying. It could just be a test, or could be to put a satellite up, or whatever information they want to give us. But we know it could be more than that. Right? It could be more than that. And I think that's kind of where you could see where it could be plausible that there is things going on sent up into space from here that we just don't have any information on.
Yeah.
And if we can gather that, then okay, then that opens up to what has been sent up there. Now that question is being asked, and Elon Musk is sending stuff up all the time. They're shooting rockets off all the time to go into space all over the world, not just here in America. So you have to ask yourself, what's the payload and what's the destination?
Speaking about Elon, he's getting into politics too. Like, you know, it's just I think there's I know Tony pretty well, and there's a lot of truth to what he's talking about, man. Like it's just tip of the iceberg of what we have to look at the bigger picture. This country doesn't plan out every 4 years. You know, this country has a 300-year plan, like, you know, 500-year plan or something like that. Like the plans go way past for every 4 years. I was speaking about this on driving just with me and my wife, just having a conversation the other day about how ridiculous it is to think that people get caught up into politics, that they would think that every 4 years they would hand the reins to a whole country over to a different person and let them their ideas dictate how that country's ran. That's not how it works. You know, that's not realistic. You know, we need to understand that that's not how things work. So what else it falls under that same category? What else doesn't work? The couple questions in the chat I saw. Yes, I'm here every Saturday and Sunday evening, starting about a little bit after 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Someone's asking, why is Drew here? I'm here every Saturday and Sunday evening with the wrap up with my boy Rob G. Another question was, is it in Denver for Mothman? Yes, Denver, I think Westminster area. And ask Tony direct. He's a very awesome person. You know, he'll respond to you, you know, and he's an open book. So if you got any questions, respond to him directly. But yeah, I think it's around Denver area.
Yeah, and yeah, Drew Banky is the after hours wrap up guy here on the After Hours radio show. So yeah, you can expect
My
him here
opinion matters.
every weekend. It definitely matters for sure. And here's the thing that I want to actually probably, this would be probably the conversation to have with Tony on the next episode, but we'll talk a little bit about it now. Is the whole Elon Musk thing? It's always bothered me. So here, we'll start here. There have been people who say, yeah, there's alien hybrid people that walk amongst us, and then they point to people who we consider strange, like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. And even though we're streaming on his platform right now, shout out to X, there are some things you got to ask yourself about. Now, don't cut our stream off, Elon, because I'm about to say this here. Yeah, don't do that. But you know, I find it strange and kind of troubling to know that one person is pretty much taking control of the space race or you know, our access to space. Also, this same person is implanting chips to interface in people's brains and has already done it so far, and is you know, leaning different ways politically, and controls probably one of the most important social platforms that we have on Earth right now, and wants to go and colonize Mars. If we take and hold on, and is in control of internet in places where internet isn't available for most other people, where all these covert things happen, and where people who are out there looking for the truth find themselves when they're out there looking for black projects or looking for X, Y, and Z. And we have one person that is in control of all those different aspects of, and I think let's sit down for a minute and take those things and put them on a bulletin board and kind of do a Venn diagram, right? And kind of see how those things intersect. Why is it important that we should care that one person is involved in all those different things or has their hand literally controlling all those different things? And how would that apply to us in the future? Like 100 years from now, 50 years down the line, would one person being in control of all those different elements that have to do with the way humanity goes in the future, is that an issue or not? Is that the new world order, right? That people talk about. Is it the new world order potentially? Is that like what we're doing here? Is that, I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking questions here, right?
Yeah, I don't know either. But you know, one thing that Tony was talking about was the cycles. Pay attention when things happen, this and that and the other, and you start to see like patterns lining up. That true. I believe that's a truth, because there's anyone that knows about QHHT, that Dolores Cannon, her findings, and one of the basis behind QHHT, and how understanding how energy flows and occurrences, that they go in cycles, 1 year cycles, even all the way down to 1 second cycles. But there's also like it seems to be like this pattern that comes out like a 20-year cycle. So if people are, and I talk about this too, when people come out for ceremony, like looking back at your pattern, like, and it's not necessarily connected to a 20 and back program or anything like that, but my point is that there's a pattern that seems to happen in the spiritual work and energy work and whatever. And 10 and 20 seems to be things that happen. Like you tend to have a trauma and you deal with it internally for 20 years, and it tends to come up 20 years later. And so there's patterns, and is it connected to these different programs? Who's to say? But I am saying that there's a lot of belief, and especially a lot of different spiritual practices, energy practices of time patterns that line up to certain dates. And I've seen it myself, like around birthday, around my own birthday, things like that. Certain things happen, and they seem to be connected from the years past, and then sometimes it changes and there's other patterns. But have you ever experienced anything like that, different patterns set up?
I can't say that I have, man, but just kind of thinking through this, I can just, I'm just thinking of how easy it is for people to not see the bigger picture. And I think what happens is that people get so wrapped up, everyone gets so wrapped up in society and just the day-to-day, whose football team's going to win this week, just all the little trivial things that we deal with in life. And then we get a piece of evidence. Okay, Elon Musk runs SpaceX. He's controlling access to space. Okay, that's one thing. You don't think anything else about it. You just keep moving on with your life, your day-to-day. Then you get another piece of information. And when you're getting it like that in little tidbits, this bit, then later this bit, then later that bit, if you're not doing like a retrospect and thinking about the totality of everything that you're hearing or that you're receiving, you just look at it as this one thing you're being given, and hey, that's not a big deal. Let me keep moving on. But I think if we sat back as humanity and started literally writing things down the old school way, where you used to get a piece of paper and a writing utensil like a pencil or a pen and sit down and write some of this stuff down and literally make a list of what it is, the perspective. I think if we did that and we went over it, it would be mind blowing. It would blow your mind, and it'd be like, well, wow, where is this going? Because tie all that into everything else that we talk about. I mean, literally, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to sit down and do that, because maybe I'll do a show on the Social Dig about that. But because I think it gets really deep, and I will do a show on that. I definitely will.
Yeah.
But it gets really deep and really heavy when you see what the agenda is, because okay, Apple, is monopolizes the smartphone market, but they get called out, right? They get called out for it. They get regulated to where they can't control everything. So what is it about what Elon is doing? Is it because it's not in one specific industry? Is it because he has his hands in all these different places that is not
He's playing
looked
a
at
long.
as
He's playing a long game that we can barely understand, because all of us are sitting here going, okay, I can make it till Friday. I can make it till next payday. You
yeah.
know, I can make my payments on my truck this month. I can make the mortgage. I got enough money for groceries, and I might be able to get tickets to see a comedian, do a date night or whatever coming up. Maybe next couple weekends if I save up for it. It's hard for us to understand like the level of, if you have an unlimited amount of money and you're like, okay, I really want to change the world, and you feel deeply about something, it's a totally different game. It's a long game. He's thinking on hundreds of years, just like the governments and the powers to be are. They plan out, like I was talking about earlier. They're playing out that, like William Shatner said when he went to space, when he did that little space thing and went out to the edge of space and saw the Earth. He come back and his idea and perspective, and that's what ultimately what it's about. It's about perspective. I say it over and over again. It's about perspective. And when you do the psychedelics, it's the same thing. You see the bigger picture because you're outside yourself. You're not looking through these blinders that are just like trying to survive and doing the day to day. And the society that we're in right now, we're not running from animals and that point in our existence as humans to survive. We're in a different survival mode that keeps us out of thinking about these higher things.
I totally agree. And long game, right? Let's talk about long game. As we got about 30 seconds left, 45 seconds. The long game part of it, right? Because you look at all those different things that are just laid out, and you be like, okay, but he won't be here to reap the benefits or the rewards of having control of all those different things. So why does it matter? That might be what some people say. Then you got to lean yourself into, okay, well, then is he part of, is the guy an android himself? And this is just, I'm not saying this to say he is. This is just being
We
kind
all
of
are.
funny.
That's my stance.
But it's just, it's like, is there a plan? Has he figured out a way to extend life? You know what I mean? To where he can actually see, because all these are long-term things, these goals that he has. And you'd figure, why would he be focusing on that if he wouldn't be there?
What if it's not extending life? What if it's taking away the existence of death completely? Like what if he knows how to do that?
Let's cap it right there and save this conversation
Follow
for
me on
another
social.
day, as we get ready to get in the show here with our guy Drew Banky joining us with the wrap up. Thank you, Drew Banky, for coming in. Also, we want to thank Tony Rodrigues for joining us in hours 1 and 2. We want to thank Steve Stockton for coming through with the Missing Person Mysteries, Tales Untold. Also, we want to thank the guy you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefithall, the man who rocks us out each and every weekend, as he reminds us to never say never again. Because yes, as we discussed tonight, the phenomena is real, and anything and everything is possible after that. So show some of your love for the conversation we had tonight. Throw your horns up. Also, we want to thank all our viewers online and listeners on terrestrial radio and digital platforms, when and wherever in the world you may be listening from. We appreciate you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask? We own the night. Remember, this show is copyrighted Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. It's been a pleasure serving you once again as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. That's Drew Banky. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, as we go off the air for the night, you can best believe that we will see you next time. Much love. Thanks for coming in and having a conversation with us tonight, as tough as it may be. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. All right, we are clear. We are all done for the night. Awesome show. And as you guys know, got to get over to the Social Dig. We'll be starting over there in about 30 minutes. Give me time to have a breath for a minute, and we'll see what we do. We'll see what we do over there tonight. So you guys have a great rest of your night. I'm going to let you guys go here as we go in and rock out with our super awesome outro. Let them take it out from here. Till next time. See you guys tomorrow.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.